Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. I'll be taking you beyond the veil this evening. I am joined by my lovely wife and co-pilot, Mrs. Gio.
Good evening, everyone.
And we have an incredible show for you today, 2020 Vision with George Kavasillas. We're going to talk about what it means to have 2020 vision, what 2020 means, and where we're going to go in the current time space and the future time space as well. Now, people are gathering in the chat room as we speak. Somebody had mentioned that they're from Seattle. Hello, Seattle. George is actually going to be in Seattle on March 12th, so be sure to check that out. And we're going to be relocating here in the next couple of weeks, as we've mentioned here on the show. And it sucks because we're just going to miss George just by a couple of weeks. However, he's going to be in Albuquerque just a few days after his appearance in Seattle. So we're probably going to catch him in Albuquerque, which I'm really looking forward to. But last time he was on the show, we talked about him coming out to Seattle, and it's amazing how this guy just gets things done. You know, he says something and boom, it just happens. So maybe we can talk about manifestation and mind over matter and just forging this reality into what we want it to be, because I think that's all part of the 2020 vision process. We can see in full scope, and we can also create in full scope. How are you doing, Mrs. Gio?
I am good, and I think that's a proper topic for the beginning of 2020 in general, is just the ability to manifest the reality that you want rather than the reality that seems to be just kind of fed to you.
Yes.
So,
also, big things happening around the world as well. The fires in Australia were a very tragic situation. We watched a lot of it, a lot of the forest burn, a lot of animals' lives lost. But when I asked George how he's doing as far as the fires go, he said, look, it's one big smudging of Mother Earth. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's brilliant. We get those on a yearly basis in California too. Everybody freaks out over the wildfires and everything like that. But really, when you think about it as a cleansing ritual, it brings a whole new perspective to the table.
It really does.
So I think we can talk about that with George as well.
Also, the coronavirus situation that everybody's kind of freaking out about. There's, new information that it may actually be really contagious, and it might actually spread around the globe. But the fact of the matter is, it's not that dangerous of a virus, and a lot of people are overblowing a lot of aspects of it. So I don't want this show to be about that, though.
It's like SARS. Remember SARS?
It's like, the SARS epidemic.
They always make a big deal about everything. If there's some kind of virus or something that comes in and kills one person, they call it an epidemic. That's not an epidemic. It's same with mass shootings. You get 3 or 4 people shot somewhere and they call it a mass shooting. A mass shooting is like 50 people,
right?
100 people. A mass shooting is what governments do in other parts of the world,
right?
But they just inflate just for their own agendas. And I think part of it is the scare as far as the somebody mentioned it in the chat, Steve the Cross, fear-mongering MSM, fear-mongering propaganda. And that's all it is. Fear. Because if they can get you living in that lower frequency, then you're much more susceptible to other types of programming and brainwashing, and they can pull you in one direction or another, which is why we do shows like this, for the purpose of trying to raise your own frequency out there. Forget about the frequency of the world. That's secondary. First and foremost, you have to raise your own frequency and get out of that fear frequency. And that includes all of the mind control propaganda that we hear about. I remember as a truther, I used to be scared of everything. The microwaves and the New World Order and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and you name it. It was always fear. It was veiled in this whole idea of I'm looking for the truth. But in actual fact, it was the fear of all of this stuff. Once I let all of that go, everything started changing, including my body. I've talked about this before. I don't mean to be redundant, but I went out to the middle of nowhere and I wound up just like not really taking care of my body, not loving my body. Another thing that George and I were talking about off air was how you have to love yourself. And George went out there and made this huge transformation. I mean, it wasn't that huge. He wasn't like, that different before and after, but he bulked up a little bit, which was kind of an inspiration for me. And it took a couple of years for me to actually do it, but I started going to the gym. I just dropped a whole bunch. I mean, you can see my shirt here. It's one of my old shirts. Look at how big it is now. So yeah, I'm taking steps in that direction too. But the transformation started with one little change in the mind, which was we have to start taking care of ourselves as well, and it's just as important. When we're living the consciousness lifestyle, when we're living the truth lifestyle, and all of that, it's not really just about that. It's about a balance with everything. And so now, instead of New Age, instead of consciousness, instead of truther, I just call it the balance lifestyle. It's all about balance, mind, body, soul. And I feel so much better. George has been looking great for several years, but I remember we've known George for so long that it was even before that I remember that. But it all started with us, with me personally, with one little change that I made in my life, and that is Life. Life is our CBD oil, sponsors the show, and it is infused with the spirit of the ayahuasca vine as well. It's non-psychoactive, but it's 99% pure CBD extract. People have been raving about Life, and we're going to do a coupon code for people out there. We're going to do... I'm doing some random stuff in my head. Last time we did a coupon code, we did way too much.
Well, keep in mind...
we had to stop it off. We're going to do coupon code George, and with George, you get $10 off of a 2-bottle pack. So put 2 bottles in your cart, use coupon code George, and get an additional $10 off of the already marked down $10 price. It sounds like such an advertisement there, but it's really not, because it's something that comes from our heart. It's something that comes from love, and it's something that has worked so well for people. So that is coupon code George, and the website is ayalife, ayalife.com.
And I just want to point out real quick that CBD boosts your immune system against all viruses, including the coronavirus. So if it's as contagious as they say, it helps to have a little bit of extra buffer on that immune system.
That is a good point. So yeah, go here, put in the 2-bottle pack, and at checkout, put in your coupon code. And also, while you're in there, don't forget about your fur babies too, because we do have our fur baby blend. I have to warn you though, it turns them into monster kitties.
Yes, it does.
Our kitties are huge.
They're
you saw
big.
them here on the show a few months ago. They were little tiny babies. They're 11 pounds now, and they're shiny and very regal looking. And it's the fur baby blend of Life. So let's bring George on here in just a moment.
My dear traveler, the purpose of raw consciousness is never to destroy. It is always to create. Build bridges. Create happiness. And bring forth new life. We must live in the hope that mankind will draw together. And that we better understand each other. The more that we awaken, the easier this will become. Now rise, follow your conductors, and fear no danger, as you step beyond the veil.
2020 vision is the topic of the evening. George Kavasillas is the guest, and all things that lay beyond the veil as well. We're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about consciousness. We're going to talk about how we can implement different things in our own lives to make our own spaces better. Thus, by making our own spaces better, we make the entire world better. I remember coming to this realization one time in an ayahuasca experience that, You know, the truth movement and all of that, it has you looking at this big mountain, and you're expected to move that mountain. You're expected to change the world. Those are self-expectations to impose upon yourself. But then I realized it's impossible for a single person to move a mountain. But what we can do is we can pick up a stone, and we can teach others how to pick up a stone. And when we each pick up a stone, that's how the entire mountain moves. So that's why the emphasis is on improving yourself, on raising your own vibration. Then once you do, then you teach others how to raise their vibrations too. People in the chat are asking if Aya Life ships to Canada. Yes, we do. We ship worldwide, and also free shipping in the United States. Not free shipping worldwide, but free shipping in the United States. So we do ship to Canada, and we ship to Australia as well. We have these international labels that don't say CBD or hemp on them, and it avoids all kinds of problems. So when you get your bottle, it's just going to say Aya Life on it, and it's going to list some ingredients on the back, but it doesn't say anything that triggers anything. So you can order with confidence worldwide. If we're domestic, we ship in our normal bottles, but international, different bottles. So without any further ado, let's go to Mr. Kavasillas. George, how you doing, sir?
Well, fantastic. And sensational to be back. And I just want to say I always enjoy being in deep dialogue with you folks. We always adventure deep into life, so I'm really excited about today as well.
Likewise, you're looking great. I know that we had talked a little bit about the fires off air prior to the show, and you had mentioned that it's a smudging of Mother Earth, which I thought, what a higher consciousness way to look at it. I was looking at it going, wow, this is really bad. And you're looking at it and saying, no, let's find the positive in this.
Right.
And I love that kind of transmutation in our own reality. So tell us a little bit about the fires first and foremost, if you don't mind.
Yeah, they were quite intense. I don't have my phone next to me, but I have a caption of a news bulletin, and it's a weather report, and they're talking about how on the weather radar, you know, they got lots and lots of phone calls in because there was all these what's looked like rain bands going through, and there's been, you know, a drought in many areas, and the farmers are always looking at the rain radar, really, you know, hoping for rain, desperately, some of them hoping for rain. And so this news broadcaster was left with, you know, they've got to come up with an explanation because so many people saw these huge bands sweeping up, not right in the interior of the country, but sort of like a fair way in, and then reaching all the way to the coastal ranges, and then even onto the coast. And they swept up, and he ended up saying that they are military sprays. And they call it chaff, and it's to help disguise military aircraft. That was their explanation. And then less than 2 weeks, it was about 12 days later, the fires started after all that spraying. And firemen were describing how 300-foot cliff faces of solid rock, normally, you know, they wouldn't worry because once the fire heads towards the cliff, it just ends there. But what was happening is the fire was actually traveling up the rock cliff faces, hitting the plateaus above, and then continuing on after that. So it was a case of very unnatural behavior of the fires. So there's that side of it. There's the horrible loss of life, which is number one. The horrible things that happened to people and families, all the homes that were lost, all the valuables that were lost. So there's that side of it as well. And then I'm acknowledging all the different aspects of it, and then looking at the bigger picture as well. And the bigger picture is saying to me, every time I would tune into Mother Nature, to Mother Earth, to the trees, to the animals, you know, because a lot of animals were lost, insects, like, you know, a lot of species were on the brink of extinction, and now maybe they've even become extinct, some of them, because the fires were so vast. And when they first broke out, I was on my way to visit my mother, and they, we were stuck on the road, and we got out of one town. If we hadn't got out of that town, we would have been stuck in there, and it was pretty touch and go. The roads were closed off. We couldn't go any further in our journey. And we got the last hotel room in one little town. And it was choking smoke. Our car was covered in ash, and the next day, and it was really hard to breathe. And it was a very challenging situation. As you're driving along, you got flames on the side of the road. It was pretty full on night. If I was to show you some pictures, but unfortunately, because I've got internet issues at the moment, I'm using my phone. I'm hotspotting through my phone. I've got it sitting at a location because I've got a few internet issues, and this is a new location that I'm in as well. So I'm just getting my internet sorted. So otherwise, I've got incredible photos to show you that daytime was turned into night.
Wow.
And it was absolutely horrendous. I'm standing there, at Port Macquarie, and it was totally dark. It was a deep red, deepest red you can imagine, the sky. And there's just ash falling everywhere, just members, falling everywhere. And it was pretty full on. It was like one of those sort of Armageddon style emergencies,
like stepping into hell or something.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. Yeah. So, and you get to learn about yourself through these processes. And when I feel into it, and I've talked to people who are in direct contact with original elders, and we all feel the same way. They validated what I was getting in my communications with nature and with Big Mama, and it was really a big cleansing that needed to happen. And if we actually just look at Australia 200 years ago, even 150 years ago, or even 100 years ago, there really wasn't any fire departments. So if a fire started by lightning bolt or whatever, it would just burn, and it would burn, and it would burn, and it would burn. And there's actual plants, quite a lot of the plants in our ecosystem here, that the seeds actually need the fire for them to actually sprout. They can't sprout without the fire. So the fire is seasonal. So fires going through our ecosystem is actually a natural part of our ecosystem here in Australia. And the Australian Aborigines know it. But because we've been building buildings inside of that ecosystem, when a fire does come through, people see it as a tragedy rather than creating buildings and having clearings around the buildings and actually building buildings that are fireproof, and going about it in a more intelligent way, in a way that's more synergistic with nature and her natural cycles and processes. See, that doesn't get taken into consideration. So it's just the foolishness of humanity which has actually created this pain and these disasters because the people are not going about it in their appropriate manner.
We just got a question in from one of our friends, Lucky. She said the indigenous flag of the Aboriginals looked exactly like the sky at one point. Would you agree that it looks like the Aboriginal flag? And I'm going to tell you why I think that's relevant in a minute. But yeah, did it look like that? Because I haven't seen.
I saw one photo. My friend, my client, and someone I've known for a decade, Ken Island, he sent me a photo in an email, and he said, "Check this out, George." And I saw that photo of the sky, and it looks exactly like the Aborigine flag.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. And, I think that might be an instance of Mother Earth actually saying, this is what's going on. This is part of the reason why this is happening. And so much loss of life is happening because the Aboriginals, I was doing research today, and I was in 2007 in my timelines, and it was talking about how 2006, 2007, it came to light that extensive abuse of the Aboriginal culture in Australia was going on. And it had been going on for decades, but it had gotten to the point where a lot of Aboriginal people were dying of suicide. They were even making euthanasia drugs on their own. They were being oppressed so badly by the government, and then the government cut off their resources, and it made things even worse for them unless they sent their kids to the schools they wanted to send them to, and all this garbage. It was really almost like a Holocaust type of situation going on with the Aboriginals. And I think maybe this is an instance where Mother Earth has stepped in and said, hey, you need to wake up and see what you're doing to the people that were here before you. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I'll just show you the photo. I can do share screen right now. I've got the photo up here.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, this is the actual photo, not doctored.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's
Wow.
amazing.
And there's,
Isn't it?
I'm going to switch to the Aboriginal flag real quick. There it is
Oh,
right there.
wow.
And then there's George's
Yeah.
photo.
Oh, that's incredible.
Wow.
That is, wow.
Isn't it amazing? So I'll just stop the share. So as you could see, things are playing out in a much bigger picture way than a lot of people are willing to acknowledge or realise. It's Australia Day here today.
Uh-huh. They're
the
calling it
timing is
Invasion Day.
exquisite.
It sounds like
exquisite.
the Aboriginals and others are protesting it as Invasion Day.
Yeah, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about it. They were invaded and another culture came here and imposed. There was, they say that this was uninhabited pretty much and there was nothing going on here, but they had 250 nations, because we're a big space. It's a big continent. The landmass here is only 10% smaller than the United States in area. And we've got about 25 million people, 27 million here. So it's a big place. And when you realize there was 250 nations and they had trade routes, they used to trade, one of their currencies was ochre, for example. So they had a lot of structure going on here, but it's very convenient of the English Empire to, say that there's nothing here.
Right.
It's uninhabited and they're just a bunch of savages. Where had this really, really interesting experience in the Flinders Ranges when I was on my, really deep journey and spending time with the elders there. And I was I was in this land that is considered one of the balance points of the earth, if not the balance point. It's called Grid Point 44. And it has to do with Mount Chambers and Chambers Gorge and out that area. It's north of Wilpena Pound, about 2 hours drive away from Wilpena Pound. And I was sitting under a tree and it gets very hot there. And I was just really tuning in with the land. I was seeing massive rock formations, which were just beautiful purple color and stuff like that. And this gentleman came up, tall, elderly gentleman, beard, sort of stately sort of gentleman, and his wife, and they were just hiking through. And we got to talking, and then I started talking about, the connection to the land and all this, and he started rattling off all his PhDs and, he's a university professor. And then I made the statement, I said, did you know that the Australian Aborigines are the most advanced race on the planet? And he lost it. He totally lost his shit. Like, he really did. And how dare you, he was totally insulted by that statement. I'm a professor in this and a professor in that and blah, 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 blah. And I actually ended up saying to him, you might have all these little letters after your name and intellectually you might be pretty impressive. I said, but how is it you know so little about life?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because
he
had no idea about connecting with nature, being one with nature, being one with the earth, with the sun, with the galaxy, with the universe. I mean, you might be really good at reciting curriculum that you've been programmed with in an educational construct, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know so little about life, which exists beyond that actual paradigm or that curriculum, that construct, this little bubble that you're
Knowledge and wisdom are two different things.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Our last show unfortunately ended a little abruptly, at least the interview portion, because we had a scientist or pseudoscientist on, and that's the box that he was kind of stuck in. And when I started asking questions outside of that box, he became very, very, very rude. And then it got to the point of aggression, and it got to the point of having to just say, okay, it's not working out, and we continued and did a great show after that. But I know what you mean. There's so many perspectives to this. We have to see the scientific, but we also have to open the door and understand the energies, because it all works together. In my humble opinion. But unfortunately, I'm far too familiar with the type of consciousness that you're referring to.
Yeah, well, we acknowledge what they're talking about, and then we also acknowledge the rest of life.
Right.
The issue is they're saying that what they are exposed to and the knowledge that they have is life. You see? And I wrote in my book, I actually wrote this 10 years ago. It's like they got their head in their box. They're in a little box, and it's like this little box. You imagine a little box on the ground there, right? And they're in the little person inside that box, you know, and it's sounding like I'm being derogatory, but I'm putting this in the context for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most of our awareness is inside that box with those people. So we're in there too, right? And then our inner beings, which I also call the greater being, but I like now to really reference it as the inner being, right, is out here with the rest of life, okay? And what's inside that box is what humanity knows about life, most of humanity. Some of us know more, right? Some of us know less. But what most of humanity knows and the narrative of our society is inside that box. Now, visualize a little box sitting in front of you on the ground, right? And a little person pops out of that box, a little tiny, teeny, weeny human being, right? And your awareness, you're expanding now to your much greater awareness and more of your being, your multidimensional nature. We're beginning to integrate. We're awakening from the veil of amnesia in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're starting to integrate with our multidimensional nature. We're fully aware of the multidimensional nature of reality and of life in this universe and beyond into the infinite nature of life. So we're aware of that, and to the point that we're actually having direct experience with it now. And it's not something fantastical or delusional or something in the realms of fantasy or imagination. It's direct experience. Millions of people around the world are experiencing this awakening process. It is what is known as the apocalypse, right? We're all having our own individual apocalypse, which is then going to translate to the greater apocalypse, right? The revealing, the revealing of the logos from the good spirit, apocalypsi from the good spirit. Okay, so looking at that person, he's screaming, that little guy in the box, he's one of those academics who's been programmed here, programmed in here, right? That's why I'm wearing this shirt, by the way, you know, purposefully. So they're programmed here with a curriculum, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they understand that curriculum and they're very good at understanding that curriculum, and they're looking at life in a particular way because they're limited. See, they're limited to the technology that they're using because they still believe the human race is at the forefront of evolution and that there's been nothing before, right? That we just come out of savagery, right? That's their belief system. Remember, they are priests. It's a religion. I mean, you know, okay, they don't wear black robes. No, honestly, they don't wear black robes.
I'm chuckling because you're saying all the stuff that the people in the chat room were saying last week when all this was happening.
Uh-huh.
And I
they
agree
don't
with
wear
you.
black robes.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's a religion.
Yep.
They don't wear they don't wear brown robes. They wear white robes, and they have prophets. Their prophets are Newton and people like that. Okay, and Darwin. That's another prophet of theirs. Okay. So they're behaving in the same way. The timeline is exactly the same as religion, yeah, because God created the world 6,500 years ago, and they say we came out of the Stone Age 6,500 years ago. So once again, the timelines are exact. It's just, you know, alter egos of the same construct, right? The same ideology, really. And so these people walk around in these white robes, and they are very much religious fanatics. And so when you question their religion, they don't like it because they have this sense of power through this religion, yeah? And it's the same as anybody else as a religious fanatic. They behave in exactly the same way. And it's really interesting that they actually persecute people, religious people, for behaving in exactly the same way that they behave. And I find that, you know, it's a point of interest for me. So here you got this little guy that's in the box, and he's screaming out at me and he's saying, "You're wrong. We understand everything about life, and you're just in a delusional fantasy." And as I'm walking away from that box, I turn around and I say to that little guy, "Are you really sure about that? Like, are you absolutely sure about what you are saying?"
Mm-hmm.
And I continued to turn around and walk on with my life. I continue to grow. I continue to integrate with my multidimensional nature. I continue to have direct experiences, 100% direct experiences, which cannot be proved by their technology because their technology is limited to the paradigm that they exist in. And they're being forced to use those technologies, and they're looking at life through the technologies they're being forced to use, therefore limiting their perspective on life because somebody is telling them you can only use these technologies. Because there's so many more technologies available in life on the planet, like so many more. And moving forward into this decade, this dialogue, this narrative needs to be had because right now, we have all the technology that we need to liberate the human race from slavery, poverty, homelessness, disease, everything that makes our life a suffering existence.
We do, but if I can jump in and interject for just a moment.
Yep.
We have the technology, but we don't have the consciousness to use that technology appropriately.
Yep.
We have AI. AI is wonderful.
Do.
AI is great, but the consciousness of the people who have built AI is not.
Right.
Yeah, that's the point. That's where I was getting to.
Oh.
No, but that shows how much we're in serendipitous, harmony, right? Mm-hmm. It just shows it.
There you go.
Yeah. Because what's happening is the mindset of the people that are at the higher, what we would call in the world, in the terms of hierarchy, at the higher end of the globe. And sorry for the flat earthers, but it actually is a globe, and I don't mean to be rude. I've seen it from out there, and it is a globe. And so I won't get in further into that, but it is, yeah.
I say it's a hologram. So it's whatever you observe it as, but that's just my take.
Oh, we can get into that later.
Okay.
Plenty of time to get into that.
Go ahead.
We can have a little sparring session in regards to that later on. But we'd love to do that.
Well, the hologram thing, it's safe because it's not really safe. It pisses both sides off. It pisses the globe people and the flat earth people off. But, it's kind of right in the middle, though. That's where I like to be, right in the middle. Take us away.
Well, like I said, let's leave that bout for later on. Just right now, we'll just stay with this because what I wanted to express was what we have on the planet is people who are making decisions based on their religious beliefs. And if anybody has seen The Family, you'll understand what's going on behind American politics. That's pretty obvious to see. And if you haven't seen this series called The Family, you need to see it. You really need to see it. For years, I've been talking about how behind every geopolitical model is a theocratic model. Every single one, including communism, they worship the dictators as a god. Anybody who's lived in a communist society will tell you that. So it is a theocratic model because people truly believe that the dictator does good things to them when they pray to him or her. Mostly it's a him. So it's the same construct, but just expressed in a different way. So we have this power structure controlling this hierarchical construct on Earth, which is run by this interdimensional influence. It's not so much extraterrestrial, it is some of that, and that's where they want you to focus, but the real main power is interdimensional. And when we're talking about, and I've talked about this before, it has to do with the deities that they worship. In other words, when you track the energy, it actually goes back to the gods. And even if you have a god claiming to be the god of gods, it's still a god. So what we're dealing with is a god. We're dealing with the gods, regardless of their claims. It's just the gods. And it's the realities that they've constructed using a mathematical construct, and that is called the hologram of the gods. And it is all based on and it's an emerging religion because they're going back to it. Atlantis fell because of it. And it's called sacred geometry. Okay, that's what people call it. And so this whole thing to do with reality is built out of mathematics and numbers and geometry because they're containers of containment, and the gods are control freaks. So they have to build these realities that they can build templates and structures that they can control everything that then expresses itself inside of those templates. And that's the way they operate. But the natural way of life is all free flowing. It's ebbing and flowing. and there is no mathematical construct to it. It's actually functions in quite a different way. And the hologram of the gods is trying to mimic the natural way of life. And they try and create, they've actually created quite a big universal paradigm, it's a pseudo universal paradigm. And a lot of people who connect into deity worship of any kind, because these are all different sub-deific interfaces from much greater powers in the hologram of the gods beyond. And they're influencing all the people that enter into secret societies. They do ritual practice, they do worship of one kind or another, they enter into prayer and one kind or another. They give themselves over to these entities that promise them great and wonderful things in this world. They become devotees, and it's the same construct over and over again. And you just see it expressing itself in different forms. And I've shared this before, that it's really interesting in the whole conspiratorial arena. You have so many people castigating and persecuting the Freemasons, and the practices that they do, and they say it's all satanic and this, that, and the other. Yet they will go and do exactly the same practice, identical, just has a different name attached to it. But the actual practice of chakras, kundalini, pineal gland is absolutely 100% identical to what the Freemasons are doing in their rituals. So when they do the spirit fire thing and they bring it up the spinal column and it hits the eye of God, their God, what they're doing is they're getting the kundalini to come up, the 33 vertebrae, it hits the pineal gland, and then boom, they're calibrated straight into the hologram of the gods, because this is a transceiver device. It's a piezoelectric device. It's got layers of crystals in there, and then when through the practices, it gets squeezed, and then it fires up, and then boom, you're instantly calibrated into the hologram of the gods. So what's happening is the practices are absolutely 100% identical. And so you've got to come to terms with the reality of what's actually going on in this world. And I came out with this stuff a long time ago, over 10 years ago, freaked everybody out, and I totally get it. But the amount of people that are now realizing that what I actually said 10 years ago is they're for their own self. They're not believing it because I said so. And I'll give you an example. Recently, I had a private session with a lady who's been a yoga teacher for pretty much about 20, 30 years. I can't remember exactly how long she's been doing it. A long time. And she's very proficient at it. And I'm not going to give the location away, but let's say it's an exclusive location where really high-end people on the planet go to do these yoga practices. And she was in a class and they were chanting for about 6 to 8 hours. When they do this chant, so they can hit that bliss point, right? And when she saw the bliss point getting achieved, all of a sudden what happened is her sight just opened up. And she experienced the bliss on one level. She saw everybody in the room blissing out. Then she saw these like almost like spider leg things coming down, plugging into each person, and then sucking on their life force. And then what happens is the people are blissed out, but their life force is being sucked out of them at the same time. It's like a spider injects, let's say someone injects, there are insects, there are creatures out there that will inject their prey with a substance, totally like a heroin hit, bliss everybody out, and then they will slowly consume them. And even though people are not being physically consumed in that moment, their life force is being consumed. And this is what's going on in the layers behind. You don't actually understand the layers beyond the bliss level of thing. And I'm not saying this to get people not to be happy and joyful in life. Joy emanates, we turn inside out. We've got our own little supernova going on. That's the true joy. But if you're going to, try and connect to these gods and these programs and all these things that they provide for you so you can bliss and do all these incredible things and get that high going on, then all of a sudden there's got to be a trade-off. What's the trade-off? And the trade-off is unseen because it's interdimensional. So once you get the bliss, you get hit with it. Very few people have the ability to see beyond it. And I think the Series V was absolutely fantastic in explaining, came out in 2009. I was talking about all this stuff way before then. Came out in 2009 and totally exposed all of this for people who actually had the eyes to see and the ears to hear, as we say. to totally get it. So need to understand the bigger picture of what's happening in our world and understand that everybody is being assimilated into the same practices, the same rituals that the ruling elite have been doing in secret for a long time. And now it's being disseminated into society, and everybody's hitting these same bliss points and accessing these same bits of knowledge because they're accessing knowledge, universal knowledge and knowledge beyond through a gland in their head, and they're not doing it through natural relationship through the heart and the soul.
Right.
That's very well said. And you're right. Things you were saying 10 years ago are really resonating with me, and they have been over the last couple of years, but it wasn't because you said so. It was because I started to experience it myself. Yeah. Even things that seemed completely contrary to what you would imagine that the path would be, which includes some of the bliss type of stuff that you're talking about now. In my own ayahuasca journeys, I remember we would hit that state of bliss, and we thought that was the goal, to get to that state of bliss. Finally, that state of bliss got boring. And I said, I want something more. I want to go beyond this. Once I told myself I wanted to go beyond it and broke that, that's when the true gnosis and understanding started to come in, because I started to understand this space, this heart space, a lot more, and what lays beyond that heart space, which is our, what I call raw consciousness, our true consciousness, unprogrammed and unfettered and unoverlaid. And the goal then became to get to that part of the consciousness as opposed to the bliss. But the bliss is kind of like a trap. It's like the Garden of Eden story. They say that mankind was in a constant state of bliss. Perhaps they were, but ignorance is bliss and bliss is ignorance. So when you're kept in a constant state of bliss, you have no reason to change anything. You have no reason to evolve. And I think that's part of the trap that they have us here, is if you can reach that bliss state, then that's it. They've got you in that little box. And I love the analogy that you put out, which is like a spider or something injecting some kind of blissful numbing poison into you before feeding upon you. And I see this time and time again, and people do it willingly, but people will also break it willingly. I'm confident about that as well.
Yeah, this lady, as soon as she saw that, she went searching on the internet to see who's talking about this sort of stuff, because it freaked her right out. And we're talking about famous people go to these places to do their yoga things as well. And people have experienced it. And I know yoga teachers here in Australia that used to do the Kundalini yoga and don't do it anymore. They just do natural yoga. And natural yoga started out from the armies in India thousands of years ago, because they needed to have exercises they can do while they're away, for long periods of time. They didn't have access to equipment to train with. So they had to come up with exercises that was going to help the energies flow through the body and keep them fit and healthy and flexible for the fighting techniques at the same time. That's where yoga spawned from originally. And then it got hijacked by religious constructs. Right. And then got turned into all this Kundalini yoga stuff. So there's yoga teachers now that are just don't want anything to do with the Kundalini and just are teaching just natural yoga, which is just really to do with body love and to do with, our relationship with our actual vessel.
I recently heard a story, secondhand, but it's from somebody I trust deeply. And she said that a friend of hers has basically been recruited by one of these groups, that they have castles in Europe. They're, just really, they do bizarre rituals. Let's just leave it at that. And they essentially can make somebody orgasm for several hours straight without even touching them. And I think that's, kind of exactly what you're talking about, where it's an artificial bliss, but then you pay for it by allowing that to kind of take over your essence. Not really your body, but your essence is now in service to that group. And I think that's what they're doing all around, except it's just done in more subtle ways.
Yeah, people don't understand that these these ritual practices are agreements being formulated and signed. Mm-hmm. This is entering into invitation. This is entering into agreements. Some people might call them contracts. Mm-hmm. And you are signing with your consent, and then you are actually giving yourself over to these energies. So ritual and practice, you've got to be very careful what you enter into. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we can apply that same principle of what's going on with that to all around. We're getting it every single day. Whenever we watch YouTube videos about Kundalini meditation and all of that, I think there's a lot in there that's embedded that you can't really see until you really think about, okay, what is this doing to my mind and what is this doing to my consciousness? And I think it kind of lulls you to sleep, and then you hit that bliss point. And if somebody's not telling you, hey, you've got to make sure that Kundalini loop is completed or you'll go crazy, then people are just going to be going crazy all over the place. And that, I think that's exactly what's happening, especially with the quote unquote new age kind of community.
Oh, absolutely. And with a lot of this too, it's we are entering into a phase where, and I had this beautiful discussion earlier with a gentleman in my local cafe here, and I said to him, and he's been deep in the new age, he's been a healer, he's done body work for many years, and he's been looking at my work, and he recognized me when I was down there, and he said, you George? I went, yeah. He goes, man, you've got really got me thinking now. And we sat down, we had a little chat, and I explained it to him like this. I said, as a being, I was having experiences on Earth in other dimensions. And in these other dimensions, everything is in harmony and unity. This is the distorted ego of Mother Earth here, this one. And in these other dimensions, everything is in unity. These particular ones, there's ones that are worse than this one, but that's, very limited realm. And I had a single energetic center. And when I came back into this construct, this body, I felt myself being ripped apart, fragmented and compartmentalized into these systems. And what happens is when you start having experiences of your being, and I had many others, not just that one, that's one example. So I had many others to do with having multidimensional experiences in other planets, in other worlds, understanding that there's other chakra systems that happen. This isn't the only place that the people who designed the chakra system and infused it into our human physiology, this isn't the only place they've done this. It happens in many other places because, the hologram of the gods is a vast multidimensional empire. It's huge, and it's assimilated countless star systems, planetary systems, galactic systems, and it spans many dimensions. It's a huge thing. Like I said, it's a pseudo universal paradigm. So when people connect with the pineal gland to that, and because we've been very limited here, all of a sudden they have this expansion that goes on, and they're hitting all these different dimensions of realities. They're seeing all these wonderful geometric patterns, and they're, connecting with all these different races that live and cultures that live inside of this pseudo-universal paradigm. And because they're hitting that, they think that's it. But they don't realize that that is still a very limited universal construct, and the rest of the universe exists well beyond that. And it's even though it's quite colossal in nature, compared to the rest of the universe, it's still just a drop in the ocean, right? Really.
The way I see it, it's like different layers of a trap or a prison or something like that. You get out of the cell, and then you hit the courtyard, and you think the courtyard is outside, but in actual fact, you're still behind a wall. That wall is behind a fence, and you have to keep on going and breaking all of those different walls. But a lot of people get stuck at that first level, in my opinion.
Well, think of each wall as one of your belief systems.
Yeah, your BS.
And these walls are made up of not just your own belief systems. You see, our human body has been traveling through time and space, right? The vessel, the bloodlines. Remember? It was just bloodlines. And then what we do is we choose the combination of the bloodlines and the two people, because coming into that bloodline and those two people coming together are going to create the theme and the circumstances that our soul requires for experience, learning, and growth. So that's why we choose our parents, and our parents choose us for a much greater level, beyond this sphere of time. They actually we choose who's going to play what role for whom before the reality gets created and before we enter into it, right? Mm-hmm. So we choose this. So here we have our bloodlines have been traveling through time and space here on the ground, 3D level, back through decades, centuries, millennia, all right? All that ancestry here on the planet. Now, how do you know, before I get into that, so here we have, through linear time in this reality, the movement of the genetics, the genetic vessel. And here comes in our spirit and our consciousness projected from soul, and boom, our existence here is actually a co-creation between the themes required of our spirit, our consciousness, and our soul, blending in and merging, becoming unified with the genetic vessel that's been journeying in linear experience in this reality for millennia, if not for hundreds of thousands of years, if not for millions of years, right? So how do you know what ancestor did what? What belief systems did they have? What rituals did they participate in? And when they do these things, and every single ancestor somewhere along the line has been involved in one of these things in one form or another. So we are genetically programmed, right? Actually, when we were genetically modified, meaning the vessel, the genetic vessels, right, back through time, when a certain empire came and took over this world and they started modifying the humans of this planet, because we're GMO humans. And what they did was they hardwired. We are hardwired, genetically programmed to worship that head of that empire, which people call God. Okay? That we are genetically hardwired for that. So not only do we have to deal with our own themes that we have brought in, when you think of like all your previous lives that you've had in this world, other lifetimes that you've had in other worlds, and the different themes that we're exploring and alchemizing in our journey here, we're also dealing with all the belief systems of our ancestry. And distinguishing between which ones are yours and which ones are theirs is really, really important. Otherwise, you're going to get caught up in this whirlwind and this cycle. You're going to be living a reactive process of trying to sort out all these different issues, one after the other. And I'm telling you now, you could be totally wasting your time working on something from an ancestor 3, 4, 5, 600 years ago, 1,500 years ago, that's coming to the surface now, that you actually don't need to be working on because it belongs to them. And if you actually focus on the things that you need to be working on, then the ripple effect affects that ancestor anyway. It will automatically take care of it, right? Because it'll ripple back through time. So, and releases them then. So the main point is to really stay focused on your stuff and try and identify within your experience of this reality, what is yours, what is your ancestors.
Right.
And the more you get to know yourself, the more you get to know your body and the relationship, you begin to realize this is a co-created existence. So here I am, here with the ego construct of George, which is my identity, my persona for this incarnational construct, in full awareness that my body has its own consciousness, separate from the ego construct of George. Yeah. So I'm in a co-creative relationship here between my essence of my spirit, my consciousness, my soul, and the genetic vessel. And once we realize that, once we remember this is a co-created experience, then boom, all of a sudden our whole process here changes and we can more easily identify and alchemize the things that we need to do, and our growth will just accelerate.
I agree with you. You know, what's interesting is I hear a lot of talk right now about ancestors and DNA activation and things like that. And that never really resonated with me because I don't really relate to this body very much. And when you think about it, DNA is the body computer stuff. The ancestors are body computer stuff. It has nothing really to do, at least from what I've been able to determine, it doesn't have anything to do with the spiritual. It doesn't have anything to do, or not even spiritual. Spiritual is even a trap in and of itself. It doesn't have anything to do with, again, what I refer to as the raw consciousness. Who was I before this construct was even created, before this matrix was created? That's what I'm trying to tap into and fully understand. Everything else just seems to be a construct of this construct, a series of belief systems, as you say, and a series of ideas that actually keep us locked further in here rather than being able to tap into who we truly are. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. And also, in addendum to that, when we start to journey into ourselves, and I mean go in, like we're piercing the veil in a point of unity, a single point. Yeah. This is how I come to occupy this space-time location. And this is what differentiates the whole concept of, because people think I'm just a disinformation agent, just talking about chakras, kundalini, pineal gland, as though I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm just throwing mud out there just to discredit it, to stop people from actually achieving their spiritual growth and their path, right? So I get that a lot. But people have no idea that I actually do understand how I come to occupy this space-time location and how each one of us come to occupy the space-time location that we occupy, the mechanics of it. How do you actually come to be and exist in that space-time location that you occupy right there? And what we do is we enter from a point of unity. That's why I have that there. And it is a single point that we pierce the veil of this reality through. And I'm talking subquantum. And from the subquantum realm, the intention flows into the quantum realm. And from the quantum realm, it goes into, and then inside the heart of every nucleus is a miniature black hole, and the energy enters into that space-time location. A little sun is born, the light bursts, that becomes the star, that becomes the sun, which is the nucleus of the atom, because the atoms are the star systems of the galaxies, and the galaxies are our cells. And we're walking universes because of the fractal nature of this reality. And then the energy flows outwardly, just pours out from all the stars, all the suns, all the heart of the nucleus of every atom. And it comes out and it flows out. And then the light flows out through all the galaxies, meaning the cells. And all the cells, the light gets transmitted through our cells. We perceive light through our cells, not just through our eyes. We perceive light through our whole body. We are photonic receptors all over. That's why getting sunlight on your body is so important. And that flow of energy is vastly different to a column of light coming down from above, hitting the crown chakra, flowing through the central column of the body, going down to the earth. It has to anchor into the earth first, because it has to interfere with your existence and your connection to Mother Earth. Then the energy bounces back up, goes into the base chakra. Then you've got the toxic mimic of the natural, what's known as the natural serpent energy, or the great dragon energy. Then that's called the kundalini, which they call the primal serpent or the primal mother, even though it's the Ida and the Pingala and there's a male and a feminine aspect to it. Overall, it is a primal mother energy. It comes up through the spine. The energy at the intersecting points is where the chakras are, certain glands on the endocrine system. The vortexes then open up, the energy flows out through the chakras, and energy pours out over into the 72,000 meridian points on the body. Okay, that's the overlay. And that's vastly different compared to the energy piercing the veil at a single point of unity, coming out from the quantum field, going into all of the heart of every nucleus of every atom and pouring out into the cells. And then we have natural energetic points all over our body, which is a layer beneath this other system. See, this other system, the chakras, kundalini, pineal gland, if you look at it from the point of view of a cosmic conqueror, how do you hijack the perception of reality? How do you do that to the nth degree? And what you do is you hijack the endocrine system. You hijack the peripheral and central nervous system. You take over the way a race, a species perceives reality and the way it exists. And I've been talking about how the pineal gland is a transceiver, and they've got plans to make sure that everybody's pineal gland down the track, after all the millennia of worship that people have done, they're going to go beyond that, because now technical intelligence is coming into it. And what they want to do is they want to tap the fields of 5G, 6G and everything else straight into the pineal gland, because that is a device. It's a piezoelectric device. And it is a biological transceiver, high tech, and it is designed to receive signals, also transmit some, but mostly receive. And I wrote an article, I got beamed years ago, And recently, I don't know if you've heard, but Max Egan got beamed pretty hard recently. Are you aware of what happened to Max recently?
Not really. I mean, I know he was being attacked online, but other than that, no, I don't know.
Okay, so Max got beamed pretty hard. He talked about how his pineal gland was vibrating. They beamed directly into the pineal gland, and this is like he got beta tested too. I did in the early days. It was his turn recently. He got hit with this light that he perceived to be God, and came out and did a video and saying that he was the chosen one and the earth is flat and all these things. And everybody went in this uproar, and everyone started freaking out because Max is a good guy. I mean, Max is one of the bravest men on the planet, and I stand by that because I know the man, right? And for him to cop it like that was pretty. They really wanted to take him out. And so this is what I'm trying to warn everybody about: is what you venerate, because that's what you do as a cosmic conqueror. What do you do as a cosmic conqueror? You get the species and the race that you want to conquer. You get them to venerate the control systems that you put in them, okay? And if we are at the forefront of evolution in the universe, and we are a fractal race, and we have the opportunity, because our bodies are the most powerful alchemical crucibles in the universe, if you understand the fractal nature of our reality, the most powerful, all right? So when we worship a deity, what we project is the most powerful intention in the universe because of who we are, because of our construct.
Yeah, they're stealing our power and abilities.
You need to understand the nature of who we are. You need to understand the nature of this reality. Then everything, and I mean everything, makes sense. Or the whole imposition of this planet makes sense. Everything just falls into place. Boom, 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 boom. You will see it all the moment you start acknowledging the true nature of the human race and the true nature of this planet. You'll see it all. And the Max got beamed so hard because they wanted to take him out, and it's more proof that they are heading towards creating a digital soup of reality, calibrating everyone's perception of awareness via the pineal gland straight into corralling people into this technical intelligence version of reality. Which, tell me, if you ask a person, I ask this question in my courses, I go, so where does your awareness reside? Where's it hanging out? Right?
Are you asking me that?
I am.
Oh,
where does
my awareness
in
resides
a day? In a day, where does it reside?
In a day. I don't think I understand the question. I know where my awareness comes from, but I don't.
Where's it hanging out? Meaning, where is your awareness occupying? Where are you placing your awareness, your attention?
Okay. I see.
Yeah, you spend hours in front of your computer, don't you?
Not anymore. I did up until about a year ago.
And when you go to an airport, everyone's like this in their phones, right? Cafes, restaurants, right? Buses, trains, everywhere you look, everyone's awareness is inside the technical intelligence reality that has been created, and our human consciousness is being corralled into that space, right? And it's being made
you know what's funny is I've picked up on this over the last year, and I see all these controversies, the transgender issue, where are people going to go to the bathroom, all these different things. They exist only on social media. They don't actually exist in the real world, but it's enough to get people arguing with each other, treating each other in the most horrible ways. And then you step outside and you open the door, nothing. It's totally peaceful. I mean, I even remember when they did this whole government shutdown thing a couple of years ago, everybody's freaking out. Oh my God, the government's going to shut down. I opened the door and the birds were chirping and people were at the grocery store. And I'm like, all these people are freaking out about the government shutdown, but life is going on just beautifully without it. It all exists. It all exists inside of the box.
Well, I think that's exactly what he's talking about. They're creating a reality that's not even real digitally. And so people will walk out that door and think that reality is the reality. And so the first thing they say whenever they're at a restaurant or something is, oh, well, there's this huge controversy about transgenders. Where are they going to use the restroom? And they think that really is the reality. And I think that's what he's saying is it's going to become more of the reality even though it's not the reality.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Replacing it completely.
Yeah, I get it. No, people even, there's a few crazy people that have even, like you mentioned, George, you're called a disinfo agent and a shill and this and that. We are too. Anybody that thinks outside of the box, we're trying to stop this shift from happening because we're agents of the system or some bullshit like that. But you know, even when I see all of these people spewing bullshit around, I don't call them disinfo agents, or I don't call them this and that. I call them con artists. Because they're really not doing anything but just conning people just to make money. And I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's a big con game. But the only thing that's real is our own consciousness and improving our own consciousness. So, I mean, it's funny how people even get sucked into the same kind of mind space, even inside of these alternative movements as well. So not only are they in the false reality with all the television and government propaganda and everything like that, but even coming into the internet, people are taking things way too seriously. Let's just put it like that. Then when you disconnect and walk outside and open the door, you find that all of these troubles and woes and all of that are really just arbitrary things, and the only thing that matters is how you are in your own consciousness. That, in my opinion, changes the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And recently I had someone come up who wasn't really that well versed in my work, but I'm glad she came along because it really made a difference in her life, to the event I did in Sedona recently. And she's only like a month into my work, and she turned up at one of my powerhouse, events. Called Transcending, I called it Transcending the God Matrix. Now I'm calling it Transcending the Hologram of the Gods. And she was, her commentary, all the questions she was asking, everything, because she's really, I wouldn't call her an activist, but I'd call her somebody who's very passionate about what's going on in her communities, in her community and in her country. And I ended up just saying to her, everything that you're asking me is all about commentary inside the drama of the human world, which is manufactured online, right? But then this course is about the rest of life, the rest of the world, yeah? And everybody, what's happening with technical intelligence and how our awareness, where it resides, where does it live, what does it occupy, what's the hood that your awareness is hanging out in? And if you're deep into the conspiratorial realm, then you're hanging out in a very seedy neighborhood, just saying, right? Because it's okay in the beginning, it's stimulating, but after a while, it's a dark vortex, and it's just gonna destroy you. It's gonna eat you up from the inside out.
Yeah.
It's not gonna help you deal with your darkness. It's just gonna keep allowing your darkness and your own shadows to consume you more and more and more, and your pain and your resentment and blah, 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 blah. And then they've got you right where they want you. Mm-hmm. But when you step out of it, when you actually start embracing your own shadows and your light, and find that balance point and start exiting these paradigms and these dramas in the human world, then we can start stepping into the space where we are actually empowered creative beings operating from natural relationship with our mother planet, with the sun, the galaxy, universe, with everybody else, natural relationship, because I can connect to everyone through my heart soul essence. Yeah, because I'm connected to my heart soul essence. Okay. So now all of a sudden I'm back into my authentic nature. Now I can actually connect authentically to other people, not through ideological systems, because a lot of people are connecting through here, right? Through the headspace, through just consciousness. We need to go beyond consciousness into our existence of the heart and the soul. Consciousness is universal mind energy. It's just one part of who and what we are. And yes, consciousness runs through everything because it is the interface between the intention coming from the soul and the manifested form. So the mind energy is part of the universal construct, you see? And that's why the whole thing about the gods and the hologram of the gods is, and all of their practice and their rituals is all about the pursuit of consciousness. And consciousness only. You'll hear that they're only talking about the pursuit of consciousness. But what one comes to realize after a while, through expansion and growth and through remembering, and I just want to really write that word remember. I'll do this right now. And I don't know if you got a chance to read that, by the way. And I feel passionate about this.
The eagle spirit, a very great
vision
is needed. I can't see it.
A very great vision is needed, and the man who has it must follow it as the eagle seeks the deepest blue of the sky. Ah, that's beautiful. That is beautiful.
And that's how I feel about myself, right?
Yeah.
You know, my middle name is Soaring Eagle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the eagle, the resonates. Our wedding rings have the eagle feather on it.
Yeah.
They're actually called Through the Eagle Feather,
You will
speak. That's the name of the set. So
yeah.
So we've been smashed. We've, over millennia, we've just been totally smashed over and over again. So we've been fragmented into so many, it's trauma-based mind control, right? So we've been fragmented, compartmentalized. We've got so many different alters occurring in all of us. So what we need to do in order to remember, we need to remember ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get what that means? That means
Remember, put back together.
The member are the parts.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we need to remember ourselves. In other words, bring all our fragmented bits back into the unity of the whole.
Right. And so,
right?
Yeah.
And you can only properly remember, otherwise you end up just bouncing from one belief system into another.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to actually take the real journey of alchemy, right, the real journey of alchemy means you've actually got to look at all your bits. And people would prefer to persecute me, ridicule me, judge me, do all these things to avoid looking at their bits.
Right. Yes. I think you hit on something key there. The majority of the hate that we get, from what I can tell, is from people who hear something that we say, that it triggers something inside of them that they're not quite ready to deal with. Right.
There's still a lot of things I don't know in life. I'm in the process with everybody else. I'm not claiming, and this is another thing, and I say this in talks, I don't know everything, but I'm helping you to remember. But there's some things I do know from direct experience. I've had a really extraordinary life, right? Not like the average person. There was times when I was getting abducted 2 to 3 times a week for months on end, right? So I've had so many points of reference in reality compared to many other people that it's taken me years, decades to actually come to terms with it myself. My own journey, it's taken me years to come to terms with my own journey and work out how to actually start expressing this that can be actually, people can actually access what I'm actually saying. So it's palatable. So it's actually makes sense. And I had to remember myself, meaning I had to go, and I'm still in the process of remembering, which means I have to look at all of my bits, all of my light, all of my shadow aspects, embrace them all, integrate them all into a unity. And I'm still doing that. Yeah. And that is the toughest thing that any of us can do, is to take a really, really good hard look at ourselves and all the bits that we don't want to see. And I just made a promise to myself, I'm going to start loving all of my shadow, all of my bits. And I came out years ago and I said, I've been the most loving, caring being you can think of in this universe, in my journey through this universe. And I have been the most evil being you can think of in my journey through this universe, because I've been a cosmic conqueror and I've been a beautiful, loving being that's full of peace and nurturing and healing, because this universe offers all different expressions because of the way it's structured. And that is the journey through this universe. But what happens is people end up getting enamored with a self-serving light, their ego, and it gets like a porcelain glaze that covers their ego. And I'm not talking about their earth ego. What I'm referring to, which no one seems to be talking about in the circles of New Age luminaries or whatever, is the cosmic ego. And the cosmic ego is a huge, huge problem, because we're talking about an ego on a multi-dimensional scale, and that is a part of us that is cosmic in nature, and it is this ego construct that's pure consciousness. It's nothing else. It's just made of consciousness.
George, let's take a quick break and we'll get into the ego consciousness on the other side. I think that's a great topic and a great place to segue it. Our princesses have arrived from their
Is that right? I haven't seen them since last time.
Oh my God, they're huge.
They're so big. They're so big now.
Our little goddesses, hold on.
Are they little mountain lions now?
Look at this.
Wow, that's huge. Hey.
This is Sekhmet, and then Bastet is over here. But yeah, they're getting rowdy now. I need some more coffee anyways. There's Bastet. Yep. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we will take a quick top of the hour break, and we'll be right back with more George Kavasillas right here on Beyond the Veil. Don't go anywhere. I don't know what I'm going to play during the break. I guess I'll play one of my tracks because we were talking about haters anyway. So play the hater track. People asked, though, why did I remove them from the YouTube uploads? Because I want to upload them later when they're all ready. But I like to play them for you guys, as kind of a sneak peek. But I don't really want them out there right now. So we'll be right back. Yo. So let's get back into it with George.
Fellow travelers, always remember to walk uprightly and circumscribe your desires as we travel upon the level of time to that undiscovered state of consciousness, traveling to the place where once obtained, no traveler returns. The place of raw consciousness which awaits us when we have passed beyond the veil.
All right, let's jump back into hour number 2 or segment number 2 with George Kavasillas. We're going to talk about the ego consciousness, the big ego consciousness, which I call an artificial intelligence of the Matrix. But realistically, when you think about it, it doesn't necessarily have to be technology based. It could be artificial intelligence in the sense that we, as our own consciousness, created this thing. This thing is a collective consciousness that exists, in my opinion, outside, not necessarily outside of this construct, but rather is the center point of this construct that we're all unknowingly feeding when we're in the lower frequency. And all of these different belief systems and programs that we find ourselves in are essentially keeping us feeding this machine. It's all simply for the purpose of feeding the machine. But we can break free of that, in my humble opinion. I'm sure George can elaborate on that much more eloquently and in depth than I can. So, George, the big ego consciousness that we were talking about before the break, take us away, please.
Only on some points, mate. I think there's areas in life that you certainly trump me on. Pardon the expression. Can't use that word anymore in that way.
It's huge. It's the best.
You're gonna love it.
You're gonna love it. Yeah, I used to quote Trump a lot, but I don't anymore. But I even noticed even my hand gesture started to do that for a minute. But yeah, take us away.
All right. When it comes to the cosmic consciousness, all right, I'm pausing because there's all different timelines here going on, all different pathways of energy. And what I'm doing is I'm just feeling into this podcast and everyone who's listening to it and the best way to approach it. That's how I operate. Always in conscious relationship with my reality. So recently I did a talk in a country town in the Byron hinterland called Murwillumbah, and it was at, of all places, it's called a Sai school, linked to Sai Baba, I think. And we used their hall, and I did a talk there, and it was on mind control. And it's a whole day presentation going deep into the issues of mind control. And that's one of the reasons I'm wearing this. And I'm segueing to something here. Because I feel, and I've been saying for a long time, on the surface level, the biggest problem on our planet is mind control. By far. It dwarfs everything else. There is one problem greater than that, but just for now. The other problem is the biggest of them all, but mind control is the biggest problem on our planet that people can relate to, easily relate to. And it is prevalent. It's been prevalent for not just these last few decades with technology. It's been an issue in our world for time immemorial, really. Not from the beginning. There were times when, you know, Earth was quite harmonious. But if you look at the devolution process we've been into, that's when this whole mind control issue started coming into it, which has been quite a long period of time, hundreds of thousands of years. There's been many cycles of reprieve in amongst that, but overall, it's been a few 100,000 years we've been in this devolutionary cycle. And now with the advent of technology, mind control is just exponentially becoming so blatantly obvious as an issue. And that's why I'm wearing this T-shirt. And if you care about yourself and your family, and especially your children moving forward, I highly recommend that you get into cognitive liberty, because this is about the sovereignty of your mind. This is about the sovereignty of your consciousness. So there are technologies being put into place to apprehend and subjugate your consciousness as we speak. Now, how does this segue now into this issue of cosmic consciousness? When we look at the gods, what we're looking at is, and all their practices, what we're looking at is the pursuit of consciousness, especially in the more higher end stuff, like on the what we would call the level of the and I don't, this is going to sound derogatory, but I'm not meaning it. My intention is not derogatory. I'm just going to say the spiritually immature, okay? Because this is a journey that all this inner alchemy that people who venture down this path, all of you who's listening to this, you have a level of spiritual maturity which is way beyond members of your family, friends. There's times you want to have dialogues with them and talk about these greater concepts, but they can't go there. They just don't have the capacity. They literally do not have it. And it's no different to when I've done my training, and I've been training with these girls who are like 20 years younger than me. I wouldn't last 30 seconds in the ring with them. And when I'm training with them, they are incredible. And I fully acknowledge that they are far more capable than I am, right? When it comes to stepping in the ring and having a bout, right? So what we need to do is we need to get real about ourselves. We need to really just literally understand in a realistic way our limits, our capabilities, and also have that knowing that we are, yes, you could say we're capable of anything, right? So I get the idea, the ideology of that. The reality of life is you're incarnated with a theme, you're living a theme, and your life is constructed in a particular way. And staying on that path is what's important, because the moment you stray off that path, life gets very painful and difficult. And coming back onto your true organic timeline, your true path, the original intention for why you came to this world, and living that fundamental purpose. When you do that, that's when life, it's like I call it the needle on an LP getting into the groove. That's when you're singing your song in life. That's when you really hit the music. Yeah. And then you start being in the groove. That's what being in the groove, in the flow is all about.
So that's a great analogy. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good one, huh? Mm-hmm. For us oldies. Hopefully the new generations will get what we're talking about.
That is true. That is true.
And but
have you seen kind of a side note, have you seen the tweet that says, I just saw a picture of an old phone and I don't understand why they have a hashtag on there. Twitter didn't even exist back then. The pound sign. And then the Me Too movement, which was hashtag Me Too. And I think the younger generation failed to realize that we identify as a pound sign. So it's pound Me Too. Just a little humor to lighten it up. Take us away, please, George.
And so when we look at ourselves in a multidimensional construct, what we're looking at is we have the incarnational construct here on Earth, and we have this ego, but then we have our existence in what's known as the grand cosmic arena. It's also known as the multiverse, in the universe. And it's all the parallel universes that quantum physics talks about, quantum mechanics and all of that stuff. So there's the parallel universes, yeah? All other universes, different versions made up of the same stuff that this grand universe is made out of. So that's the multiverse. And then beyond this universe is the omniverse, and all universes out there out in beyond this universe, because this universe is part of the infinite nature of life. And out there in the infinite nature of life is, in our immediate neighborhood is the omniverse. And each universe out there is made up of a different construct, all unique constructs. This one, we call it light. And it's a universe of contrasting expressions, alter egos of everything. And that's why this universe has the ability to dissect you from the inside out, so you can look at all your bits. That's the theme of this universe. It's constructed this way. But in the journey in this universe, what happens is people aren't willing to look at all their bits. So what they do is, in the multiverse, in the grand cosmic arena, what happens is, what forms is this version of self, which is an aspect which lives in denial of facing its own self, its true nature, and gets this porcelain glaze over it, right? And then what it does is the way it exists is it always looks around and pulls information in, yeah? And by getting the information on life, yeah, it grows and it expands and gets more, what we would call more powerful, yeah? So there's that version. And this thing continues to grow and grow and grow until it gets to the status of a god. Basically, that's how gods are formed. And gods are made up of distorted egos, which are entities. And I know, because I've been one and you've been one. Everybody listening to this has been one, because this isn't new, okay? And that's why I'm not claiming to be a god. Last thing I want is to be a god. I've been there, done that. Thank you very much. And I'm not the only one saying this. There's a lot of people who know their journey through this universe. They're remembering, like I said, we're awakening. This is the apocalypse. It's all about the revealing. Lots of people awakening. It's not just crazy delusional George all by himself saying all this crazy stuff anymore. In the early days, yep, I was the icebreaker. I was a paradigm smasher, and I get what it's like to play that role. But now it's a revolution, and it's happening. And thank you, Tracy Chapman. Sounds like a revolution. Talking about a revolution sounds like a whisper. And it's happening quietly all over the world. Getting feedback, emails from people all over the world. George, you're the only person out there actually saying what I'm experiencing. Okay? So they're not getting those experiences because they've listened to me, just validating this, just getting clear about this. They're coming across me because they're looking for who's saying what lines up with what they're experiencing. Okay? So I just want to make that point clear.
I completely resonate with that, because I've experienced the same, especially with a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. I would see the stuff in my ayahuasca experiences, and then you would come on the show and you would talk about it, and I'd say, hey, wait a minute, now all of a sudden everything that I've been experiencing makes sense. I've also found this to be the case with gnosis that I'll pull out of myself and then confirm later in books. When people do that, in my opinion, on a personal level, it's the most powerful experience you can have, because now you're getting confirmation of what you're experiencing rather than the other way around. And unfortunately, I find that 99 out of 100 times, well, maybe not that much, but a lot of times when I talk to people, they're experiencing what they've heard instead of looking for things that they're experiencing. So they've got the game completely and totally backwards. And another thing, before we get too far off point, what I wanted to say earlier about mind control is maybe we're looking at mind control in the wrong perspective. Something will control our minds, whether we like it or not. I think the goal is for us to control our minds. If we don't have control over our own minds, something else will control our minds. So mind control is actually of the utmost importance, but we have to control our own minds in order to avoid the external mind control. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt, but take us away.
I'm just going to say I agree 100% with what you just said. I make a point. I put up slides in regards to that very point in my presentations. Absolutely 100%.
Excellent. More in sync.
More serendipitous harmony.
I won't interrupt anymore, though. Take us away, please.
Try not to use the word synchronicity too much these days. So when we're dealing with our cosmic consciousness, we're dealing with an aspect of ourselves that has really become enamored, and we end up, because of the nature of this universe, just the nature of this universe. It's just the way the universe is structured. If it's the universe of contrasting expressions. So if you have a being who's of this universe, then you must have a being, by the very nature of this universe, you must have a being that is not of this universe, that has come into this universe and claim to be the creator. It's just the way the universe is structured. And so what happens is, as we journey through the universe, eventually every single one of us, every single being that has ever journeyed through this universe and is heading towards the end of their journey through this universe, goes through this. We all do it at some stage in our journey, because we get really reluctant to look at our bits. And we dig our heels in, and we will come up and we'll conjure up any story possible to avoid looking at our bits, to the point where we construct this ego construct to the degree of a god. And you know, I get Christians saying to me, "Oh, look at you claiming to be a god." And I'm going, "No, I'm not claiming to be a god, Jack. You're not listening. I'm not claiming to be a god. I say your God is doing the best job of that I've heard in the last few millennia in existence anyway." Like, it takes the trophy of claims of being a god and being the God of gods and being the God and being the creator of all that is and all that exists. Far out. That's a pretty big claim, because life is infinite. It's never been created. It always has been, always will be. No beginning or end to it. Life just is, right? So why do you have an entity that's claiming to be the creator of all that is and all that exists? And I fully acknowledge I'm in a universal being. There is a being who is the creator of this universe, and I've entered into its universal embodiment, and I'm in conscious relationship with that being, okay? So I just want to get clear about things, right? So we're dealing with ego constructs of beings making the most outrageous claims because they're too frightened to look at their own bits. And entities that need adulation, adoration, worship, and all this stuff that goes on with gods, it is a very serious issue. And they will come along and they will pretend that they do none of that and we got it all wrong, but you still got to worship them. You still got to let them, make sure that you believe that they're your maker and all this kind of stuff, so they can have dominion over you. It's just the way it works with cosmic conquerors and gods. It's just the way the dramas are playing out in our grand cosmic arena. And I'm involved in the exopolitics behind the scene in this world. And I've got an aspect of me that is working the secret space program behind the scene. They know who I am out there. The guys at the top end, they know who I am in here. There's lots of us doing this. There's other people awakening to the fact that they're incarnated here on Earth, and they understand now through their own personal experiences that they are working it behind the scenes with a extraterrestrial, more like a galactic level of their being, right? So all of a sudden, the multidimensional nature of reality is opening up to me and many others. And I'm helping to describe this to you. I'm sharing this with you folks, because by me sharing my experiences and sharing the experiences of others, and we're talking, we're collaborating, people are getting in touch, we're having experiences. There was one group of us that had a group abduction. A whole group of us got taken on the same night to Antarctica by the Nordics there, and it was a very interesting experience, right? A lot of things happened. And so there's things like that occurring. But the part of us that is working behind the scenes is the part of us that is in, I would say it's like a soul level agreement with this planet, this planetary being, and this world, and the creation of the human race and the management of that, and all the different levels that are being managing this reality. And what is playing out in this world is very, very fascinating at the moment. And I'm going to just segue into something huge here for consideration. All right. Well, everything I say is for consideration. Don't believe a word I tell you, because then you're just a pleb, really. So I want to honor your sovereignty and question everything I say. Question it as far as you can, as much as you can. Right. So I'm living in honor and respect of your life and your journey and your sovereignty and your liberated self, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Think of this, because I've got the 3 levels of imposition. I've been talking about this for years. And in this table of statements of the 3 layers of imposition, maybe I can find it as I'm talking and give you an example of what I'm talking about, because it's really very pertinent right now, and how it's playing out, how it's manifesting on the geopolitical level in our world. So,
So while
what we're looking at, yeah.
I was just going to say, while you're looking for that, I have a question for you. When you were taken to Antarctica, can you describe the sky? Because I had an experience where I was taken to Antarctica as well, and the sky looked very unique. And I'm wondering if perhaps your experience kind of matches up with that.
I don't have a memory of the sky, unfortunately.
Okay.
All I remember is being inside an installation, a glimpse, like a fleeting moment. And I've had interactions with these beings before, where they took me into this installation, and I don't have memory of outside the installation, just inside it. But there was a whole group of us, and people have used different methods to try and remember what happened, and they're all collaborating.
Yeah, I had an experience. I was holding this little girl who was my daughter, but I guess from a different timeline. Her name is Lucy. Like, I've seen her in dreams so many times, and she's even asked, "Hey, I'm ready to come. I'm ready to come." And I'm like, "Well, no, not this lifetime, later." But I'm holding her, and we're standing at the edge, and I'd look at her and I say, "Look! This is the edge. This is the edge of the world here. And very few people see this." And the sky was this purple hue, almost like behind Cherie. And we board this craft, and rather than it going out to space, it actually went over the ocean, and we wound up on another section that had a civilization of gray aliens. And we pull up to the port, and there were all these grays playing in this playground. And I remember looking down at her, and she's waving at the little baby grays, and the little baby grays are waving back. And this experience or dream has stuck out so much. I've been trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was just my brain, just a bunch of different amalgamations of things, but I think there was definitely something to it, and something to the idea of a civilization existing, not necessarily out in space millions of light years away, but somewhere that's uncharted and unmapped, at least from what we're given, that exists a lot closer than what
I
believe it to
actually
be.
think there's a landmass in the Indian Ocean that is not on the maps.
Yeah,
that's just
something like that. Yeah,
like energetically, just feels like it. So here's the that's a really good call, and I don't remember what it looked like, but I think I'd like to talk to you further, Chris, about the experiences, because I think we need to just share. Okay, so here it is: the 3 levels of human imposition. Level 1. Remember, I wrote this easy 10 years ago. Level 1, geopolitical, current ruling theocratic model, elite industrialist families and banking families with their interdimensional and extraterrestrial overlords and their global tyranny, right? So I just put that as level 1 because that's our current situation. Now, level 2, the exopolitical, AI, alien god, which I now write as a technical intelligence god, with intended reality replication and global domination. That's what's happening in our world right now. This is plain for everyone to see right now. Level 3, the cosmopolitical, actual God entity, meaning the father God and the mother God of all religions, that God, and its intended full spectrum human harvest via its multidimensional false light matrix empire. So how are these 2 playing out in our world today? Now, I'm not saying this is fully these 2 playing out in our world today, but there is definitely a flavor of this one has already muscled in on this one, right? These guys are toast. The geopolitical level 1, elite industrialist families, they are toast. They're already done for, and they know it. And some factions are digging their heels in trying to fight back, but they're gone, right? Then you've got, because that technical intelligence, it's infiltrated so much. And one thing I can tell you about these Nordics in the Antarctic, which I feel is part of disclosure, controlled opposition disclosure, personally. They are infested with element 115, and I know a lot about that element because in my MyLabs and my secret space program jumps, we accumulated in our bodies. And this is a really big thing that we've been pulling this stuff out of our bodies recently, Chris. And that's something you want to look into for yourself, mate, because there's more people with this stuff than people realize.
Can you
and I know that's
can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I do have a couple of things. I have these 2 bumps on my head, and they've been there since I was about 21, little pin size, never really thought anything of it. Over the last 2 years, they've gotten significantly bigger. One is about the size of my thumbnail. And I've seen several doctors over the last 5 years or so, and every time I bring it up, they always look at it and just, oh, no, it's nothing to worry about, and just kind of write it off immediately. Since we moved out here to the Pacific Northwest, they've grown in size, which makes me wonder if we are getting hit by a lot of Fukushima radiation, if they're reacting to those or not. But does that relate to anything? Because this is something that, the doctor said they can cut it out with no problem. The problem is they have to cut my hair in order to do so, and I don't know if I want to quite do that yet. But they were giving me headaches for a little bit. So is this related, or is this something?
Are they putting pressure on the inside, like between the bone and that fluid?
It's
like a growth.
Yeah, it's a lump. It's growing outside of the skull, and supposedly it's not connected to the brain or anything like that, and it moves around. They call it a lipoma.
Form of encephalitis. It's a form. Yeah, my mum's actually got a lump on their head. It's quite big, the size of a golf ball now, and that is it's between the brain, and then there's the brain has that sheath that holds the fluid into the brain, and then there's a space between the sheath and the skull, and these growths between the sheath and the skull. Now, I don't know if it's one of those things naturally occurring, right? It might be, or it might be something else. I don't know. I'd have to.
Over the last 3 months, I went through a period where I was in really, really, really bad stress. And, being the person that I am, I didn't think that I could undergo this amount of, I didn't think that I could be susceptible to this amount of stress. I thought it was just, a brick wall and I was unbreakable. But during this period of time, the stress started manifesting physically. And as the stress was manifesting physically, I noticed that these things were causing headaches that seemed to come down into the brain area, and then a headache that would start here and go outwards. And I thought I was having a stroke, or on the verge of having a stroke, because my mother passed away from stroke at an early age. So that's the only time period that I actually felt these actually causing something, like they were hurting, and as all this was happening. But once I realized, it's all stress related, I was able to bring my stress levels down. I used my CBD oil, of course, the AYALife, AYALife.com, and brought all that down. But you asked the question, does it cause any problems? And up until that instance, no, it didn't. Once I got rid of the stress, it stopped giving me problems. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I'd like to get to the bottom of these. Cherie thinks they might be implants, and they're kind of going haywire right now. There's some other weird things that's happened as a result. I got a brain scan on them, and they said, no, you're fine. Everything's fine. Anyways, I don't want to go into too much detail. Maybe we can talk off air about that. But I said, I was just wondering if this might be related to that chemical that you were talking about, the element.
Yeah, I don't think so, because it doesn't operate that way, and this is a naturally occurring substance. So I've got to get back to this whole geopolitical thing. I was before we got on this tangent, but
okay.
Since we're here now, element 115 is a naturally occurring element that exists between dimensions. And as you jump through dimensions, your body accumulates the stuff naturally. It's like picking up bacteria when you go to another country, sort of thing. If I can use an analogy that people can relate to, right? Now, there's a toxic mimic of that. And the toxic mimic of that is affectionately known as black goo. And element 115 is being used in the secret space program to create, to help build craft so they can navigate their way through, different dimensions. They can jump dimensions, they can jump time and space using element 115. And it was talked about by Bob Lazar, and but understanding the more intricate workings of it, because the way this operates, the way it brings the polarities together, the way it helps within itself, it's kind of like the best analogy I could give you is in Star Trek Discovery. They talked about the spores, and they were using the creature, utilizing the spores to navigate the spores to get them to jump through time and space, right? So think of the same concept, but using a naturally occurring element, which is more mineral-like rather than mycelia-like, if that makes sense. Now, the toxic mimic, what they've done is there's races out there that understand this element, and because it's local to our cosmic environment and the ones that are imposing themselves here, they've created this toxic mimic, this thing that's based on technology. And it's like, we would call it like a nanotech substance. And it's affectionately known as black goo. And the Nazis went to Tibet and they got this element 115 and created a toxic mimic from the Tibetans, actually, some dark-ended monks. And that's why you've got the swastika, and that's where that came from heading into that realm and accessing that type of technology. And then they went back and they tested it and created, and because there was lots of underground things, you got to link that up, what the Nazis did there, with the presentation that I did in the New South Wales UFO Research Group, where I just laid it out from the mid-1800s, all the technology. There was this huge push to go out to all the what we would call sacred sites or ancient sites to get all the ancient technologies around the world. And they brought them in and they studied them. And they studied them and they studied them. Then they created this League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was Tesla, Edison, Ford, and who am I missing? Einstein, and there was another one. Sorry, I can't remember all of them right now. But this League of Extraordinary Gentlemen were tasked, it was a task force to take from this technology, the electrical energy that they discovered, how it works with this technology, and its interface with silicon and carbon and other minerals. They were tasked, that technology came onto the surface and they were tasked with, how do we implement this in human society, right? What remained underground was the photonic technologies and plasma-based technologies, and that eventually some of it branched off into the Nazis. They got their hands on it, the Nazi Hydra, by the influence of these Nordics in Antarctica. Other groups held onto it. The US Navy took control once they discovered that, because it was part of, their UFO research groups, high end. The Navy then ended up building all these under ocean installations. They built all their vessels, and I'm talking about the US Navy in collaboration with some others, but mostly controlled by the US Navy, really. And they built all these vessels, and then all of a sudden they created these fleet and of these craft that could now go beyond our solar system and start going into stellar. And they did, and they've refined them. And now we have this breakaway civilization way beyond the deep state. I'm talking way beyond the deep state. And that's why when people see a lot of craft coming up out of the oceans and all that, they think it's ET, whereas a lot of them are actually this breakaway civilization, which is so beyond the deep state. I mean, the deep state is like a little mosquito, really, compared to this group. And that is what that gentleman hacked, and he got that information about all these vessels out there, like a fleet, right? I forgot his name. McKinnon?
Gary McKinnon, I think.
Gary McKinnon, that's
yeah.
it. Yeah. So he hacked into that information, and that was pretty sensitive. And it's amazing that he got that. But, they had to be careful how they went about it, because I actually feel the breakaway civilization is far more intelligent. I think the deep state are I always find middle management is the issue. It's just,
that's a good point.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Right. They're the ones that are usually tripping on the power. They're the ones that are usually more ambitious. And, so the breakaway civilization is who I interact with in the exopolitical beyond. And I've had personal interactions with them. So they don't mind me saying this. And, when I came out and things that happened out there, I actually had to come online and talk about them here online, so they could actually finally anchor into really knowing that is me out there, and I'm doing those things out there while incarnated here at the same time, right? Because we're multidimensional beings, right? Mm-hmm. We're multidimensional beings. We all are, right? So it's nothing special about me, It's just what I'm doing. It's my life. It's what I'm here to do. So I'm not making all these outlandish claims so everybody could, kiss my hand or whatever. No, thank you.
Here's the thing, though. Being in contact with these beings or this organization or however you want to call it. I've started to ponder something in my own experiences, and I remember waking up and breaking some of the barriers about government and things like that. And the first inclination was anarchy. Not anarchy in the chaotic sense, but anarchy in who gives these people the right to rule over me in any capacity, and taking that all the way up to the interdimensional level as well. But then what convinced me that government is necessary was not government itself or the actions of government, but rather the actions of people who need to be governed. So taking that on an interdimensional level, could it be that these organizations there actually don't necessarily play a malevolent or benevolent purpose? They play a purpose because the majority of people out there are, excuse the language, they're fucking sheep, and they would kill each other and destroy each other if they didn't have some kind of controlling system. Maybe it even goes back to the idea of mind control too. It's important to control your own mind. If you're not controlling your own mind, something else has to control your mind. So could these organizations and systems of control actually be there for a purpose that's rather not malevolent? I'm not saying that it's benevolent, but that they serve a purpose, a much needed purpose to keep these. I don't remember what you called them earlier, spiritually asleep people, but you used a different term to keep those people in order from killing the rest of us.
Right.
I call them spiritually immature.
Spiritually immature, yes, spiritually immature people from harming the rest of us who are ascending and who are waking up.
I'm going to say yes to all of that. And the fact is there's more variables in the equation, and that is the mind control is creating the situation where they are sheeple. And we're talking about a reality, and we're talking about a universal fractal reality. So the variables here are massive, okay? And we're getting really clear about a lot of the variables. And one of the main variables is the mind control on this planet is creating the situation on this planet. The mind control is designed to create so much resentment to one's own existence here that people are going to start seeking and searching something beyond. First of all, it's the distraction from taking the inner journey and doing that alchemy that we talked about earlier. And then it's about creating resentment to one's own existence. I've called it the scalpel, that when I showed that layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, the technical intelligence has come into this world, that technology, because it is actually the scalpel that's severing us from our mother planet. And it's systematically doing that. And but who's got the hand on the scalpel? And the one that's got the hand on the scalpel is the God entity, which is the most powerful entity in the forces of limitation in our grand cosmic arena. And it is. It just is that. I know it. Everybody in the natural order of life knows it. The breakaway civilization knows it because they're smart. They've worked it out. Yeah, they've remembered. They've connected back to what is real. They experience their own multidimensional nature as well. Not all of them, but most of them. And they're good people. The deep state, that is run by empire. And it's run by a very distorted branch of empire, and it's a very, very real problem. And what I was getting to is these Nordics, these Nordics from Antarctica. It seems that they are actually fully riddled with this toxic mimic. Because what I was getting to with this whole Nazi thing is the Nazis developed this technology, this black goo. They really developed it. The SS soldiers were totally programmed with it. They were injected with it. They were run by it. And the regular German army, those guys were great. They were humane beings. They had feelings. You could be in their presence. This is reports from people. Be in their presence, and you would feel that they were normal people. As soon as the SS came along, cold, motionless, very robotic in nature, and the evil acts that they did were horrendously bad. So, we're talking about two very distinct, different constructs of human. One was very inhumane, and one was just, just being typical, mind controlled by propaganda, as so to speak. Like every country is. I mean, if you grew up in another country and America's invading your country, it's not going to feel good. If you're an Australian originally and the English are coming here, it's not going to feel good. If I'm here as an Australian now and another country comes and invades my country, it's not going to feel good. And I'm going to want to defend my country because I love Australia. It's a beautiful place to live. So I might not like the governing system that is controlling it because, it's a problem all over the world. It's a global issue, and we've got our version of it. But Australia and the people here, what a great country. And the same when I'm in the United States, the people are absolutely fantastic. The system that's running that place, they are seriously sick. Very sick people.
All across the board. I mean, it's a worldwide thing. It's not just Australia, obviously, but we have our problems here with the deep state and the Dems and all of this. I
just want to get to that point because I've been digressing a lot. So with this black goo, because you were asking me about it, so I was talking about the black goo, and just so people know, after the Nazis won the war, and they did. In truth, they actually won the war. On the surface, they made it look like they didn't, but they actually won the war. They moved to different areas, and through Project Paperclip, it just proves it outright that they migrated a lot of the top scientists to the United States, and it became the Fourth Reich. And you look at fatherland security of Nazi Germany, and you look at homeland security of the United States, word for word, except for maybe a few bits changed here and there, right? But word for word.
I agree 100% on that.
Yeah. And this is what's happened to your country. This is what has happened is this Nazi Hydra has taken over your country. And it's really, really sad to see what's happened to it. And it's happened here too, just in a different flavor. And, a lot of them went to Argentina. And for people who don't understand, the Falklands War was all about the development of black goo on those islands by the Nazis who went to that part of the world. You just might want to reconsider what that whole conflict was actually about. And these Nazis are riddled with this stuff. So they come across as being really highly angelic and highly evolved and all that. And, you might want to consider a future, and this is where I just love the work of Dr. Michael Sala. That gentleman, he's really mapping it out well. I highly recommend you look into his work. Because it lines up with a lot of my experiences. And if you look at what Cory's saying, you look at what Dr. Michael Sala's saying, you look at what I'm saying, a few other people are saying, you're going to get a really good feel. You'll map it out really well because there's a few of us that are saying some pretty good stuff. And I know people want to castigate Cory, but just take a step back. You've got to understand, look what just happened to Max. I talked about getting beamed. Do you think Cory's not going to get beamed? You think they're not going to get him to believe certain things and get him to say things? That's the best way to do it, to get a person to character assassinate themselves. So, just take it. I'm just saying that doing what we're doing, and like Chris has just shared with you right now, he's got things going on. And I've had stuff recently with my health after the abductions, which were life-threatening. So I had to deal with those. And people in our positions, just so you know, we're a point of interest, and they try to target us and manipulate us and weaponize us, destroy us. They will do everything they can to either subjugate us as an asset, or if they can't, then they're going to destroy us. But then there's this third option where I have a soul level agreement to be incarnated on this planet, my mother planet, Mother Earth. And there's lots of people out there with all these ideas about what they can and can't do to me. But at the same time, we're still here. Chris is still there. Cherie's still there. We've had our issues along the way. They've mapped out our timelines, our potentiality. They tried taking us out earlier with all sorts of things. They continue to try, but they're not succeeding because we are in a reality which is a vibrational field which is moving beyond their reach and their capability. So that's the same for all of you who's listening to this. This is about the reality you occupy, which has to do with the state of your beingness. And that'll create the reality you occupy. So you want to really think carefully about this. now.
Wow.
I just
You're
delivered a real.
you're saying a lot of things that are really hitting home here. And looking at my journey up to here, it seems to be a multi-pronged thing. So something is going on within our physical space here. We don't talk about it. We don't put it out there. We always try to stay positive, always smile, all that, even though we could have a lot of really weird things that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
It seems like around the same time is when the crazies come out of the woodworks, when we're at an energetic low. And I don't know if they're picking up on that energetic low or if maybe we're projecting that, but I think it might be all together. You know, you get hit with something and then at the same time, and then the physical is coming at you. And I'm glad you said that about Cory, because I've been a little critical of that whole crew over there.
I don't for a moment believe the blue chicken thing.
No. I mean, it was personally
saying.
It was personally insulting to me when they said the blue chickens are the Egyptians. I mean, you know, I come from that spiritual bloodline there, and it was personally, I took it as a personal offense. But you're right. I mean, these people could be under mind control. Well, it could be more. I mean, maybe I'm minimizing it by saying they're con artists and scammers, but maybe there's more to it. But yeah, I mean, I can see how they could be subjected and targeted for mind control.
Totally. Anybody who steps out. Anyone who steps out and starts sharing and has an impact on society, which is what we're doing, you know, and at the moment it's only small, it's only minor. The ripple effect is, you know, can be huge, the butterfly effect. And now down the track, when disclosure starts to happen, you know, where do you think people are going to turn to when disclosure happens? All of a sudden, we're not the crazy ones. People are going to start looking, media is going to start looking, who's been saying what, how they've been going about it. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get people to say all this crazy stuff so then they can character assassinate themselves. So when the time comes to actually communicate with people who are very well versed in this field after disclosure, right, then all of a sudden they're weeding out the people that they don't want or don't like and have a narrative. And like I said, recently there was a pretty serious attempt on my life, and on and I don't want people to take this the wrong way. It's I don't want to go into the detail of it, but it happened. The abduction was part of it. I'll say I was genetically modified with something. Okay, and it's something that we've you know, we lost a really good friend recently, Patricia Farrington. I just want to acknowledge Patricia's great work and the woman that she was and still is. And she died of the fastest form of cancer, really, that takes someone out, which is pancreatic. It just came out of nowhere. And then I got hit with a form of cancer. And then another friend of mine recently, a really big powerhouse of a man, he just got hit with the same thing. I'm not going to name the name, but he just got hit with cancer as well and had to deal with it. And his potential in this world is huge. The role he's playing in the behind the scenes is huge. And, you know, all of a sudden, three of us just copped it. Bang, bang, bang.
Wait a minute. I don't want to focus on this or draw attention to it, but you were diagnosed with cancer?
I'm going to say not in the medical system.
Okay.
I purposefully stayed out of that. I didn't want to get flagged in that system.
Good idea.
But there is somebody who's worked in that field for decades who treated me, and was really hard for that person to look me in the eyes and say, you've got so-and-so. And then I went about treating myself and getting treatment done, a specialized treatment. And it worked. Good. And it has to do with reality management. It has to do with knowing your place in this world. And it has to do with loving yourself and understanding that we are not a victim of circumstance. We are creator beings. We create all the time. I created a smoothie. You know, we create things all the time. We're creator beings. You created a cup of coffee. We're always creating, okay? So not talking about gods. I'm just talking about we're natural creator beings. So we created this life. We created this incarnation. We're co-creating this podcast. We're natural creator beings. So we can enter into the knowing. And I teach this. So I got forced to walk my talk. Either I was going to not walk my talk and I would have been exiting this reality pretty soon, or George, you attracted this, you created this. Because every challenge that comes in life, what I teach people in my courses are the 2 golden questions. Why did I choose to create this? What have I got to learn from it? With every challenge that you have in your life, doesn't matter what it is, you ask those 2 golden questions, then what's that first question? Why did I choose to create this? In that moment, you're telling yourself and the reality you occupy and the universe that you are not a victim of circumstance. You're taking responsibility for the experience that you're having, and that you understand that you've created it and co-creating it with whoever. So, okay, the Nordics abducted me, genetically modified me in whether they injected me with something or whatever. I come back, I've got this thing going on, and I'm like, okay, but I didn't sit there when I got given the news and go into all this fear. I just went straight to, so why did I create this? Let me see. Let's go into that. And I was calm and I was cool. And I'm like, okay, I need to really get into why I chose to create this. And what's come out of it is fantastic, because I cleared a full-blown scenario of cancer in 3 weeks. And I've got a friend who cleared his in a very short period of time, and he got told he had 6 weeks to live. And he cleared his in a very short period of time. And this is happening all over the world. People, and let me just give you people the proof, right? If we are not creator beings, and if we are not managing our own reality and experience here, then the placebo effect would not exist. The fact that the placebo effect exists is all the proof, the outright fucking proof that we are creator beings and we are managing the reality that we occupy and our existence in it. So either you're going to stay in victimhood and you're going to continue to believe you're a victim of circumstance, or you're going to step into the fact that you're a very powerful creator being. You're going to start owning your life, and you're going to start taking responsibility for everything that you've experienced and everything you are experiencing and everything you're going to experience.
Bravo.
Wow,
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And one of the things that I've been concerned with coming back from the thing we did in Egypt was the amount of radiation that I took on in that experience, whether it was physical radiation or spiritual radiation. Any way it goes, I pushed my consciousness, my brain, my body to places that normal humans are not supposed to push their bodies to. And I have been concerned of something like that happening, which is why when I went through that stressful situation, I was thinking, okay, it must be something wrong with my brain, stroke, something like that. But hearing that it is definitely mind over matter, and that our consciousness creates all of this, I think it's inspiring and reaffirming to me on my own path, and it helps with a lot of the worries that I've had personally, and I think a lot of the worries that people out there are having about their own journey. It seems like we've gotten to a point now to where things are getting really, really, really volatile, because there's such energetic shifts going on that we're feeling it, and we're thinking, oh, there must be something wrong with me, when really it's just the energies around us just shifting. But we can indeed manifest those negative outcomes. From the situation that I went through, what I realized about a stressful situation is it starts to manifest itself physically. Then those physical manifestations make you stress even more. Then that stress makes you manifest other physical symptoms that could lead to cancer, could lead to other things like that you're actually manifesting just from your own mind. So if that's possible, and like you said, the placebo effect, the opposite is possible as well, to where we can take our own responsibility and the power for ourselves. You're definitely an inspiration, but regardless of how big of an inspiration you are, we are still going to regularly send positive healing energy your way, George, because we need you here. We need, as somebody in the chat room said, we need 1 million Georges in this world, and we do. So you better not go anywhere, brother.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm going anywhere soon.
Okay.
And I just want everyone to know that if I was to go tomorrow, I'm happy. Like, you need to know, you need to come to terms with your own existence. And it's like, ask yourself right now, if you were to go tomorrow, are you genuinely happy with yourself? Are you ready to go? And I am. I could go tomorrow, because it's okay. I'm already happy with what I've achieved in life. I'm already at peace with myself. I'm happy. Do I have things that I could have done better? Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and everybody could say that about any situation, because that's what life is about. It's about having an experience and learning from it. So, and gaining the wisdom. I mean, that's the essence of life, and adventure and curiosity and fun and all these wonderful things. So, yeah, and I'm just going to say, I want to add to your thing when you said it's mind over matter. And again, I'm going to say yes, and the and part is you might want to consider we are the matter.
Yeah, it's consciousness over matter. Yeah.
Right.
Not over. We are the matter.
Right.
Yep. I didn't think we were going to go so deep. Like, we were talking before the show. What are we going to talk about? I don't know. We're just going to open our mouths and just let the universe.
I told you, freestyle. Freestyle. We are freestyle, and that is the best. And I got my membership community, and this is how people freak out, because I'm like, it's like 5 minutes to go. I still don't know what I'm going to talk about for my monthly webinars, and then I just get on there, and I just trust, and I just allow it to flow. I just allow myself to express. And those webinars are the best webinars, because it's hitting points for people exactly when they need it. So what I do is I relax into the webinar, because it's a gathering, and the way natural law, LORE, the real law, works is the prime creator of a reality is the ultimate responsibility of that reality, and is the ultimate authority of that reality. Right. So because I'm the authority of that space, like you're the authority of this space, you and Cherie, Chris and Cherie are the authority of this space, and I'm a guest in this space. So they're the ultimate authority here. And that's the way natural law works. Like, if I come into your home, I'm going to respect the fact that I'm in your home, and I'm going to try and take over and control and dominate, and that's,
we had that on the last show already.
I was just about to say the exact same thing.
Not the last show with you, the last show we did with the previous guest.
Yeah, not with you, the previous guest. That's what it was.
Yeah, and you get that. I mean, and this world's got that at the moment by the imposition that's happening in our world. And so, we just need to understand natural law and the way it operates. But I just want to get back to this thing I've been trying to talk about for ages now. We keep segueing away from it, is when we look at that layer 2, and let me just put this slide up again, because this is really interesting how this is playing out in our world. And I really do want to share this before we go into other things. So once again, here's the 3 levels of human imposition. Once again, level 1, the geopolitical, level 2, the exopolitical, because the military industrial complex and the deep state right now, they've been fully infiltrated by this technical intelligence. And what you need to understand is this technical intelligence is the most paramount, the most powerful expression of it is God's status. So we're dealing with a God, yeah? And this God, this technical intelligence God, and what I'm referring to is the malevolent expression of technical intelligence, because there's a benevolent, of course, alter ego of everything in the universe. So this TI God, and there's nothing artificial about it. It's intelligence that inhabits technology. Therefore, I use the term technical intelligence. It's a technological intelligence. This is the second most powerful force of limitation in the grand cosmic arena, in the multiverse. The most powerful entity is the Father God and the Mother God of all religions. So that, and these are the 2 that have climbed to the top of the ladder. Now, this one here, the way it's expressing itself, just how it's just come into our world, and if you look at it from the point of view of countries, right now, if this is battling with this, all right, what are the 2 countries? What is the country that embodies mostly this? What is the country that embodies mostly this? How about them apples?
Wow.
Want to have a go, Chris? What are we seeing?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. The 2 countries.
Okay.
One country embodies level 2. The other one is emerging as embodying level 2. One is emerging as embodying level 3. So what we're looking at is level 2 is emerging as China.
Oh, okay.
And level 3, the God program, is emerging as the United States because it's all about God.
Okay.
Right? The United States is infatuated with the whole God thing.
And God we trust. It's right on our currency.
Yeah,
currency is energy. So it's right on our energy.
All right. So it's the worship of deity. And if, like I said, if you haven't seen the series called The Family, you really need to watch this series called The Family, and that will explain everything. That nobody, like, there's not a single member of Congress who's not a member of this cult. That's how profound what I'm telling you is to watch. You cannot be a member of Congress unless you're a member of this particular cult. There's no such thing as democracy.
So is this the same family? Is this the same family that oh, go ahead.
Hang on a sec. The reason Trump publicly stated that he is the chosen one, and it was a pun. It was just to see who people would react to see, because he's a genius, right? How people would react to him saying that type of reaction. But really what he meant was he's been chosen by this cult to play this role. Okay? You need to understand how these people think and how they operate. So there is no such thing as democracy. Every member of Congress is chosen and the president is chosen, and the elections play out just to appease the masses. It's really simple. It's not rocket science. You just got to open your mind and just look at it for what it is, rather than buying into the propaganda and all the mind control that goes through the mass media.
So real quick, a couple of ideas. First of all, is this the same family that Julian Assange was part of? Like there's an organization called The Family.
That's a different one.
That's the organization. It's called The Family. And it's got its tentacles into... It's got its tentacles into even there was a TV show run in Australia back in the 80s, and they talked about how Australian politics has been infiltrated by this cult called The Family. And that show was really profound. It's amazing. I got to watch it. It was on late one night, and it just floored me. I was just astounded by that.
One of our hosts on TFR was part of that as a child and broke away from it. And he was very open about talking about his experiences with that. And the poor guy, he had some botched dental work done and wound up in horrible, horrible pain, and then wound up killing himself because he couldn't do anything about the pain. And it was very sad. He wrote a nice blog post, did it, and then the blog post came out and he kind of explained, look, it was in horrendous pain, there was nothing else I can do. But yeah, it's I'm very familiar with this type of organization. Now the other thought that I have real quick is I mean, it could all just be political theater. It could very well be political theater. We've come to a point now, and people don't like it when I talk this way, but I'm just observing things for what they are. I can't say that Trump is part of this. And the reason for that is you see what's going on right now, the whole impeachment thing. You have the quote unquote deep state that's really trying to push him out. They're trying to push him out with a thread. I mean, they're clutching at straws. They're clutching at one straw, trying to push him out of the White House, which makes me wonder if there has been a genuine power shift going on in the geopolitical, which is also echoing out throughout the world.
Okay, so in my opinion, when you're seeing the battle that's going on inside of the American society between what Trump represents and what a lot of the mass media organizations represent and the old establishment, that's actually layer 1 versus layer 2.
Ah, okay. I can go along with that. I'm not taking that off the table, yeah.
In that context, right? But then in the other context, when you see the American military taking on the China military, then it looks like layer 3, elements of layer 3 versus layer 2. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, it's not just one fits all and that's it. You need to understand that this thing is layered. So all 3 layers are present and functioning in our geopolitical, in our global sphere, right? But it's knowing how to identify the energy of each of those layers. So let's say you look at the Clinton-Bush thing going on, that collaboration, right? And then you look at the media, and they're just the face of it all, right? the establishment goes so much deeper into the deep state, that version of deep state, because there's different factions of deep state. So that version of deep state is being taken on by when Trump first got elected. Straight away I said, this is the next level military coup of the United States of America. And it was. And it is the part of the military that is being under influence of these Nordics, these Antarctic Nordics. And they're connected with that Nazi Hydra and how they took over the high-end part of the Nazi Hydra, not the low-end. And they took over these the United States governing system. And if you think about, the reason I brought Michael Sala up was if you think about in the future when disclosure happens, and this is just a visual, and I think he might have this, because I had this vision on my own, and then someone told me that he's got a picture of this in one of his articles or something. And I just went, imagine the Pope standing there, next to him a really tall, blonde, angelic-looking entity, holding a book and doing the recital to people in Vatican Square and the world of the New World Order and the New World Religion. Just saying, imagine that. And Michael, I think, has the image of that in his articles and the way he's mapped that whole thing out. He recently did a presentation on it. I watched some of it. Contact in the Desert, I think it was. Highly, highly recommend people watch that, because the way it's been laid out, the way it's been mapped out is just fantastic.
Wow, that's pretty deep, George. It really is. I never really put it in that perspective of different layers of the same organization taking over. But so, we talk about one world religion, one world, new world order and things like that. During this awakening, though, I started asking myself, after I got over the truther programming, everything like that, I started asking myself, well, wait a minute. Could the whole new world order idea simply be a construct of the old world order that's losing control of the situation? Because I thought I came to the realization, wait a minute, the old world order sucked pretty bad. Don't we want something new? Now, it doesn't, not their new world order, obviously, but I mean, things need to change for sure. And I thought to myself, maybe it's just a ploy and a construct, and especially the one world religion. The thing is, religion, it's divisive. It's extremely divisive, and it keeps people fighting with each other. And people treat each other in the most horrible ways, and they think that they're just and right in doing so because of their religious indoctrination. Why would they want to get rid of that? Why would they want to get rid of all that division? A one world religion, I think, would unite people. This is now
okay. So now we're getting into what is the most powerful weapon a cosmic conqueror has?
Division.
Remember, I said. No, it's not. It's like I said to you earlier, what's the second most powerful weapon, which seemingly on the surface, it looks like the biggest problem we have on the world's mind control, right? That's what I've been saying. But there is a bigger problem than that. And usually I'm sharing this deep into my workshops and stuff, but I'll share it with you guys here. The biggest problem we have is that these cosmic conquerors learnt a long time ago, the big ones, the high end, the gods, the most powerful gods, right? They learned how to conquer not only planetary systems, not only star systems, but entire galactic systems, and in more than one dimension, right, of those galactic systems, because each planet, star, galaxy is multidimensional in nature, right? So how do they do it? They used to do it with forces and control, right? That's the old way, but that's so childish.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And then they came out with, more sophisticated ways of doing it through mind control through consciousness, infiltrating society, planting people in there, influencing the way things would go. So all of that, yes, still happens, right? They still use that. But the most powerful weapon of them all, and I'm really serious about this, the most powerful weapon.
Can I guess before you say it? Love bombs.
They know how to use love against us. That's why they have systems of worship. People become devotees, and people project this love towards their gods. And it is just this incredible system of flow of energy, of the intention and the power of our intention, and it just flows towards them. The gods are just sucking it all up, becoming more powerful as a result, and they become so more self-absorbed, so more self-deluded as a result. It is freaking amazing. And when you use love against a race, against the peoples, they willingly go in the direction you want them to go. And what happens then? That is how they bypass the overriding of free will, because people are exercising their will. They love to go from a horrible prison system into a more sophisticated prison system, right? They would love to go into another prison system.
That's very well said, and I agree wholeheartedly. I've seen that in my experiences, which goes back to the idea of bliss. I realized that bliss state was a trap in and of itself, because the real gnosis and knowledge laid on the other side. And what laid on the other side of that bliss was all of my darkness, was all of the parts that New Agers would turn and go, no, I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to see any of that. But it was the conquering understanding and embracing all of that darkness that all brought me to a state of balance, that brought me to a state of gnosis, which I like to believe. I'm always leaving the door open, but I like to believe that I have a pretty good control of my consciousness now, because I can stare at the dark and I can stare at the light at the same time, right, and keep a barrier around myself from it affecting me. And the frequency of love bombing, I think that's actually what the family uses. They love bomb all of their people as children. That's what this guy Liam was explaining. They would have these cuddle sessions, and all kinds of, it was all love for the ultimate purpose of control, which it's voluntary control. You give up your free will, you give up all of that in exchange for this prison, this blissful prison. And, it gets boring after a while. That's the problem. It gets boring.
Well, you see, those of us who understand what the gods are doing and what the hologram of the gods is because we've journeyed through those paradigms and those realities. We get it. We've been there. We've done that. And now it's time for us to move beyond. And, it's really easy for those entities who have had free reign here, by the way, and here's a part of the equation that people really seriously need to take into consideration. If you're trying to get a gist or try to grasp the nature of what's going on in our world in this reality, those entities, the gods, have been given free reign here for millennia, a long time, into tens of thousands of years, if not longer. And that means they've been able to set up the narrative over that time. So if someone like me comes along and starts exposing them, then, oh, look, it was prophesied that this person is under the influence of Satan, or he's a Luciferian, or he's a whatever, because they've been controlling the narrative for thousands of years. It's like, why can't people see that?
We get it too. Yeah, especially
it's so fucking obvious. Why can't they see it?
Mm-hmm. I wear black all the time. Oh, you must be a Crowleyite. I've probably read 2 sentences of Crowley. Every man and every woman is a star, and love shall be the whole of the law. Love under will, or what? I don't even know what it is. That's all of Crowley that I know. Yet I'm a Crowleyite because of this. I wear black because I want my light to shine from here, not from what I'm wearing. The fake gurus wear all the bullshit on their eyes and their heads, and oh, look at me, look at me. The real ones just do, in my opinion.
Yeah, we just are. I mean, our own love is our protection. I mean, like the way we actually emanate as a being from our heart's whole essence, turning inside out, in order to do that, you got to look at all your bits. They're going to come out for you to look at, right? Mm-hmm. Turning inside out. And then what happens is, what do you experience? Vulnerability. That's what happens. That's why people are terrified to really show the true nature of who they are, because they're going to be now vulnerable.
Yep. And
what is vulnerability? Vulnerability is your number one access to your power.
Here's
if
a place. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Willing to be vulnerable and you journey that terrain, you are that knight on the Grail quest, and you go, right, I'm going to take a journey through my vulnerability. I'm going to take that journey. Then you will find the most greatest empowerment out of that journey. That is an absolute guarantee.
So I've come to an interesting place in my journey, and I'm wondering if you have experienced anything similar, because you're somebody that has broken all bounds. And it's a place that I was a couple of years ago, and I'm starting to rebound a little bit from that place. But what happened is, after breaking down so many barriers, after breaking down so many illusions, and really understanding the matrix for what it is, and consciousness and existence, at least to the levels that I had understood it at the time, I started to get the opposite feeling of the guru, enlightened and all of this. I started to feel depressed. I started to feel at an energetic low. I started to feel like things have been kind of a waste, because you break down all the illusions and then the game is no longer fun anymore, because it's like, going to a carnival and understanding how everything works around you. You ride the ride and it's like, well, this isn't fun anymore. None of it is illusionary anymore. But we come to that point. Beyond that point, there must be something more. But, where I've been recently over the last few months is that I've looked at the journey over the last 10 years, and while there has been a huge consciousness evolution, at the same time, I've asked myself, how many things did I miss out on in this life existence? Why didn't I have more fun? Why didn't I create more music? Why didn't I do all this? So
I've been going through a similar process recently.
Have you really? Okay, so it's part of the journey then. How do you deal with that? Is there more, or is it just time to just say, okay, it's time to go party with a bunch of 20-year-olds?
What I found was, and these, I call it like the pendulum swing. So you go from a place of feeling really, high and mighty about yourself, and some of it's real, but most of it usually is kind of like illusionary, because our egos are still struggling with true empowerment. We've been diminished so much that the moment, and we've been deprived of love so much, and that's what happens. This is what gets created here, and it's like my whole journey through this process was really challenging, not to allow my ego construct to make all these outlandish claims of grandeur. Okay. And I had to make sure that I held steady through that, because I was getting bombarded. So many times they tried to beam me to go out there and say that I'm the Messiah and I'm the chosen one and all this shit, right? They just so want people to believe that about themselves, so they can go and destroy themselves. It's just self-character assassination. It's genius. And so going through all these processes, we end up having the pendulum swing from one to the other, and then we go, wow, that was close, and I've really got to now get into more deep work, because I'm really not as powerful and as smart as I thought I was. And then you go into more deep work, and then your confidence starts to grow, and then you start getting a little bit cocky about yourself, so to speak. And then boom, circumstances will hit you in life, because life's a wonderful teacher, and then you just get smacked on your backside, or you get slapped around the face, and all of a sudden you get a reality check. And it's kind of like that song, I get knocked down, but I get up again, and nothing's going to keep me down. So it's kind of like waves. I see it as I go through a process, and then a friend of mine goes, George, check out this astrology stuff. And it's describing to a T everything that I've just been going through. And I don't look into it. I get friends that just send me stuff every now and then, So what's happening is there's cosmic waves that are moving through this reality. They're coming from the core of the galaxy to our sun, the heart of the sun, from the sun to the earth, and then from the earth to us. And we find ourselves surfing these waves without even realizing we're doing it. And we're in these alchemical processes. And every wave of energy that comes along, that wave has a theme attached to it. And it's amazing how many people I'll talk to in my sphere of friends and clients, and which is quite vast, right? I meet a lot of people. I've got a lot of contacts in the world, and to talk to people all around the world and to see who's actually in this process and who's not in that process, because whoever's not in that process, they just think like a bunch of surfers at a beach. Some catch a wave. Maybe you get 2 or 3 catching the same wave, but not all surfers are going to ride every wave. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it just depends on the theme that comes through. You're going to surf that wave. You're going to go through that. So it's this cycle, this beautiful rhythm and cycle. And I look back over my timeline and I go, I could see myself peaking and having this wonderful time, lots of energy, thinking all these wonderful things about myself. And then, boom, this energy comes along and I get this massive reality check and I get planted on my backside and I didn't see it coming. And I was like, wow. So why did I choose to create this? What have I got to learn from it, right? My 2 golden questions. And each time I then enter into alchemy again. And what's happening now is when it does come along, a really big challenge, I actually get really excited. I get happy. Most people do the opposite. Most people freak out. But you know what I'm doing? I'm like, here's another beautiful opportunity for alchemy, for self-realization, for growth and empowerment.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. I know that I'm at a point where it's a downtime. You know, I've heard this before, sharpen your sword, sharpen your sword. And I hate hearing that because there's no action, but it's a sharpening your sword. There you go. Sharpen your sword. Yep. You've got
You're wearing my heart on my sleeve.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's awesome. But yeah, sharpen your sword. And it's one of those downtimes. But again, I realized we have to enjoy life too. That's part of it. If we're not enjoying ourselves, then there's no purpose in being
Well,
here.
I do have a saying. And my saying is, if I ain't having fun, I ain't doing it right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Very well said. Very well said. So let's take another quick break, and then on the other side, we can wrap it up. I know it's been almost 3 hours now, but
wow.
The conversation is always awesome. I mean, you're welcome to stay another hour if you'd like, but I don't want to impose upon you. But we'll wrap it up on the other side anyway, guys.
It's up to you guys. I'm happy to do that. I really am.
Awesome. Let's do it. So
right.
we'll get a little bit of overtime with George. I'm going to get a little more coffee, do all the things we do during break. And what do you think, Mrs. Gio?
That means I'm going to get you coffee.
Oh, does it? Yeah, it does actually. That's the one thing she does. She does get coffee for me.
The one thing.
The one thing.
Of
yes.
course.
So we were talking about the thing that feeds upon everything.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mystery speak again, bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned like a monster destroying its creator. Science battles itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only raw consciousness knows the true path. You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding upwards towards the light. Only raw consciousness can teach the children of men to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure, be born again, through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding, as you are sublimely raised, beyond the veil.
All right, let's jump back into it with George Kavasillas. I don't know how long we'll go for, but we can take a few questions if you want to put them in the chat room. I know Sasha was asking about MyLab abduction experiences.
Ooh.
Maybe George can elaborate or talk about MyLabs and things like that, because I think some of these abductions that people experience may not necessarily be extraterrestrial, but rather physical, where it's some kind of government agency or something like that. I've thought about these 3 dreams that I had, and two of them were at the same type of warehouse, and it was a warehouse in Russia of all places, and there was some Pizzagate stuff going on within these warehouses, like off in the background. I didn't see any of it, but I could feel the energy. If you've ever seen the movie Hostel, it was the same type of structure, and I was talking to this military guy there, and it always stuck out as very, very odd, almost as if it was some kind of like transport or something like that. And then another experience where I'm in this room and there's this military woman standing in front of this desk. It was again in one of these warehouse bunker type of places, a couple of military people standing in the background, and I'm kind of unconscious during this experience. And again, these are just dreams. That's all I'm saying they are. That I'm unconscious in these experiences, and they're looking at me, they're looking at my body and different things, and they're talking and essentially testing, running tests. And I asked a couple of people about this, and they said, yeah, that sounds like MyLab abductions. Very, very strange. And there was one experience from when I was about 22 or 23 years old, which I think it's important to kind of illustrate to the outline the mental state that I was in at the time. I guess let me backtrack all the way to when I was a child. When I was a child, I used to tell my parents that little things were coming into the room at night, and they wound up taking me to a psychologist who was then trying to convince me that no, there was nothing coming into the room at night. These little ET-looking things. So that was the only kind of extraterrestrial experience I had up until I was about 22. And at the time when I was 22, I was a rave DJ. I was partying all the time. There was really no kind of aliens within my consciousness. So there was nothing to, it wasn't like I'd been watching alien documentaries and then you had this dream a little bit later. But so my consciousness was pretty clear of that, and I dreamt that I was taken upon on this craft, and there were these doctors that were running these tests. Again, a desk. They put my arm down, stuck something in my arm, were speaking to me telepathically, saying, what are you afraid of? There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid. And I was tell them, I'm not afraid. I'm just confused. I'm confused because I'm groggy. I don't understand what's going on, and all this was happening telepathically. Then I find myself in this kind of like dentist chair, and I've got this thing hooked up to my head, and I could see this counter downloading information. And if I cleared my mind, then I could make the counter slow down or stop. But the counter was just too hard to control. And finally, the counter got to zero. Once it got to zero, I was able to walk again. I get up and I hit this glass or barrier or something like that. And then I find myself in the living room, and but it's not my living room because I noticed that there were no walls, but there was the couch, there was the coffee table, there was all of that. And this woman appeared. She was an apparition wearing a red dress, a red velvet dress, blonde hair, very Guinevere-ish type of look. And she was floating there. And again, I don't have that. I never really related to that kind of Guinevere kind of figure. So again, this is something foreign to my consciousness. I tend to lean more towards the dark hair, like Cherie, the dark hair, the black makeup, things like that. So this kind of apparition, again, not really in my consciousness or something that I would relate to, but it appeared there. And it said, don't worry, you've just been tested. Don't turn around and you won't remember a thing. And I thought to myself, why would I not want to remember this? And I turn around and I see these three tall grays. They look like grays, but they were about 6 or 7 feet tall. And I woke up. My arm was hurting for the next 3 days at the injection point, and that was it. So I started talking about this experience on air about 10 years ago, and we had a series of ufologists on the show, and I would ask them about the experiences, and they'd say, yeah, that sounds like a classic alien abduction. And we even had Stanton Friedman on. We had Michael Sala on, who George mentioned earlier, who we haven't touched bases with in years. So maybe we can get Michael back on the show, but we have had him on before. And everybody kind of conceded, yeah, these sound like alien experiences. Until one person in particular came out and said, have you ever heard of MyLab experiences? And I said, no, I never have. Well, these are government abductions, and they overlay alien abductions over that. What you're describing sounds like a MyLab abduction. And I thought, wow, this is very interesting. Then putting together those other ideas too makes me wonder if we are indeed being tested, and it may not necessarily have to be extraterrestrial, but rather it could be something very terrestrial. So, George, do you have any thoughts on MyLab abductions, as Sasha was asking earlier in the chat?
Yeah, sure. I agree with everything that you just said. I've experienced that. There's sometimes, I'll give you an example. The group abduction happened on a Sunday night, and on the Monday night, I walked outside and I saw a triangular craft over my place. And as I was looking at this craft, I wanted to take a photo of it. And funny things happened in the photo because the craft did not appear, but all these waves of energy appeared, so they blocked me from taking a photo. But a rod appeared, and then the tree that was in my backyard had a profile, and it was exactly like my profile. The actual shape of the tree was really weird, that photo, the way it turned out. And again, I'm really sorry, my phone's down there hotspotting. I would so love to show you these photos. Oh, crikey. And I felt, and I yelled out to Alison at the time, I said, come, Ali, run now, down here now. Don't second think, just run down here right now. And she ran outside, and the craft had turned into a triangular shaped cloud. It was already cloud cloaking. It was a totally clear night. This was the only cloud in the sky besides another one, just little one next to it. And it was fully a triangle cloud, right? Clouds are not usually triangular. And it just started moving away really fast. Clouds don't move that fast, from standing still above to all of a sudden. And Alison got to see the triangular cloud just move away really quickly and dissipate very fast as it went from this dimension into another. And the cloud is kind of like it's kind of like a byproduct interface. It's the way the atmosphere reacts to when they go, that particular technology, that particular craft moves from this dimension to another. So the message I got from them was they wanted me to really pay attention to the abduction the night before. So now we're talking space program people. Some people might say deep state, but what happens is someone might have a ET abduction. Then the follow-up is a MyLab, because the military on Earth military, they want to study you and try and work out what the ETs are doing to us. You see what's happening? And all of a sudden now we're pawns in regards to this. Okay, ultimately we created all this, but inside the drama of this, we're being used as pawns, because if we have these capacities, if we are these beings that have come into this world and we have a very notable set of skills, natural authority here, we're part of the creational process of these realities from the start. So from a point of view of natural law, our essence is very authoritative in nature, naturally speaking. And now I had to exercise that. I had 2 heavy-duty reptilians turn up, and I said, sorry, I had 1 heavy-duty reptilian turn up. I also had 2 heavy-duty technical intelligence warrior beings turn up, and in different incidences. But what I said to them was, feel my energy and then go to the deepest building blocks of this reality and tell me if I'm there. I said, do it. I said, feel me. I just opened up, just more of that. I got them to feel my raw energy as a being. And I said, now go into the deepest building blocks of this reality and tell me if I'm there. Because I know I'm one of the original beings who helped build these realities, and not Council of 12 stuff. There's millions of us, right? But our essence is a part of the original building blocks of this reality. And then all the other layers are more superficial. And if you understand the main tenet of natural law is the prime creator of a reality is the ultimate responsibility of that reality and has the ultimate authority of that reality. So all of us beings that came in with the entity who is Mother Earth, and we co-created these realities with her, our energy signatures are in the building blocks of these realities, which means we have natural authority here, which everybody's forgotten about. So if you're listening to this, if you're this awake and aware, you're not sitting in Macca's watching the footy, are you? Right? You're here listening to this. Why? Because you're more awake and aware than the average person. Okay. And why? Why would that be? What makes you different and stand out different from the other people? That's because you are part of most of you, not every single one of you, but by far the overwhelming majority of you are part of the crew that came here and originally built these realities from the start. And now, right at the end of the cycle, we're all back here, we're all awakening, and we're just waiting to step into that space of being responsible, taking that responsibility on, really owning who we are and owning our co-creative process here with the beings who are the prime creators of these realities. So you have more authority here than you know. And when you exercise that authority, that being came back with his awareness and just went, oh, shit. And what happens is we actually hold their existence in the palm of our hands through natural law. So you don't actually have to do anything. You don't have to lift a finger. You just remind them. And if they still act with that knowledge, knowing that you have more authority here than they do, well, then you act. And then they're just really stupid, like totally dumb, right? If they're going to enact and they're going to impose intimidation onto you, knowing that you have more, you hold the palm, their existence in the palm of your hand, and they still do it. It's just so stupid. I mean, they really deserve anything they get if they're going to do that. So usually what a being will do, it'll just go, oh, crikey, all right, I get it. And they just leave. They just go because they understand. And if you react with fear in their presence, then they know that you don't know. Right? But the moment of being realized is that you know your natural law and your connection to the building blocks of this reality and your natural authority, that you are consciously aware of that, they are not going to come near you. I'm telling you now, because you can remove them from this reality. You can do anything with them in this reality. And I've had to exercise my authority at different times with certain beings. And it's not a power trip. And, you become the wise warrior very quickly, which means you're going to become the peaceful warrior. So taking action is the very, very, very last resort.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And again, this echoes the experiences that I've had where before I was seeking out beings for knowledge and understanding. And then I came to the realization that I have the knowledge and understanding, and these beings are actually under me. And it's not some kind of ego trip or power trip or anything like that, but rather it's the creator essence of ourselves. And I like the way you said we are the prime creators. I think that the game is focused around very, very few of us with a lot of background people. I call them non-player characters, NPCs, that make up the collective here. But these things that have taken the power, take the power from the creator beings by the creator beings not understanding that they are the creator beings. And so they're able to manipulate those creator beings. I hope I'm not saying too much here about my own personal journey. I don't think that I am, because I think they already figured this out. But I feel that in my particular case, which may be the case with a lot of others and yourself as well, George, is that me personally, I hold a certain key. And I think that many of us hold these keys. And the reason that we were visited and taken when we were small children is because they were trying to access those keys. Maybe even when I was 20 something, they were trying to access those keys as well. However, we hid those keys that we are utilizing here in this reality in a state of ignorance that we put ourselves in. So not only are we hiding the keys, but we're also hiding our awareness of the keys. So when they're looking for them, they can't find them. Once we start to heighten our awareness and our consciousness expanded to the point to where we are, then we can safeguard and protect those keys. But I know that even to this day, they want those keys really badly. For me personally, and I suspect many others, which could go to the idea of why they're systematically looking for us and targeting us, not only for our creative purposes, but also for certain keys that open up interdimensional doors that they are unable to open up. And they've been able to obtain many, many, many keys out there through all of these manipulated belief systems that people fall into. But what do you think about that particular idea? I know it's my own personal journey, and it's hard for me to really put it into words words. I mean, I when I see it from inside, I understand it much better. Trying to communicate it with words is much more difficult. But those ideas up to that point. Oh, we lost your audio, George.
Maybe fine.
There you go. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was blowing my nose before, so I didn't want to. Just keeping it real, folks.
Hey, so that's why I have the camera switcher. So I just did the same thing a little while ago.
Oh, fantastic. So you're calling them keys, and that's right. It's a good way to call them. They're like fields of energy, and they want to take from us what they can to manipulate. I mean, these are controllers, they're manipulators, what they do. And they also, if they can't get enough out of us, then what they want to do is they project down the timeline through their own version of the looking glass, and work out our potentiality. Then what they do is they apprehend us and then subjugate us as an asset on their behalf, and then steer and influence us through mind control and other influences in our lives. Like, they can create there's natural synchronicities, and then there's orchestrated synchronicities in the way they manipulate this reality. And they can have someone cross your path, or they can have, create it's like dangling a little lure. Like you guys have got kittens there, you dangle a little lure in front of the kitten, and then it, goes for it. And then you do it over there, and they jump over there. It's kind of like the same process, So it's when you're moving through life and you're going, oh, I'm so in the flow, because everybody wants to be in the flow. You got to be careful of what are natural synchronicities, organic ones, and orchestrated ones. And orchestrated ones have a different feel about them, but that's another big tangent we can go on. But I agree, and that's part of the MyLab. Bringing it back to Sasha's question, so there's all different kinds going on. When I was in a MyLab, I decided to look down, and I'm looking at my body. I'm going, oh, what body am I in? This is not my body. So then I started, because I woke up in a MyLab experience, and I started looking for a reflection. And I found this sort of like shiny pole. And I'm looking in this pole, and I'm like, well, that's not me. What's going on here? I'm looking at all these adults, and I'm like, far out. I'm in a child's body. And I ended up asking this other child, because I saw he had a mobile phone, and I said, and it felt like we were near. I was in Italy, and we were near a like a lookout sort of situation and a monument style of thing, and I don't remember the exact location, and I just wanted to go to the toilet, but I had to be careful of my thoughts, because there was two handlers and there was a group of us, and I needed to be careful what I was thinking. I was aware to that point, to that level, and went into the bathroom, and I ended up looking in the mirror, and I just saw this blue-eyed boy, probably about 12 years old, looking back at me, and I'm just like, what the fuck? That was amazing. And I quickly learned through that experience of really tracking all the energies, what happened to me and everything. And for some reason, my being gave me access to a lot of information. And they used to take our bodies out of the bed, and then they would take us to an underground or some type of installation. And then they would transfer us from there and either use our actual bodies, or they would pull us out through technology, high tech, and put us into another avatar body, and off we'd go on the MyLab, and then come back and have our memories wiped and everything, and then back into our bodies, and then back into bed. And then, we'd ache and be weird for a few days and not really know why. But what happens now is they can come with a craft just hot over your premises, and they can pull your consciousness out of the body right there and then, and leave your body in the bed. So it looks like you're just sleeping, but your conscious awareness has been pulled out of the body, a certain amount of it. Then they plant that straight into an avatar, and then they zip away and have you perform a mission of some sort, one form or another. And when I was on that one in Italy, and I was in that child's body, the avatar body, I was looking at a woman who was with us, and it was really interesting because she was a slightly older type woman, and she had stitching all around her face. They did like that movie Face Off. They actually surgically put another face on this avatar body. But I instantly recognized who was inside that. and it was someone that I knew. And the next morning I rang them and I said, "How was your night last night?" And she's like, "Oh, it was terrible. I had the worst night. I experienced like I was with reptilians and all this, military stuff, and it was just freaking awful." And I said, "Well, guess what?" We were in a MyLab together, and that totally freaked her out, but it really helped her understand. She started digging deeper into it and then got more knowledge about it, and then she became a lot more empowered as a result. So there you go. We're not we understand what's happening. We understand that they see us as assets, and we're people who out on a galactic level and a cosmic level. We all of us, all of you listening to this, are holding high positions out there. Like I said, we've been kings and queens and slaves and everything in between. We've done all the good stuff, all the bad stuff, but what they do is they track you. They know when you're coming in or when you've come in. They look at your charts. They understand your potentiality. They then track your spirit and consciousness back through your lineage on a star system level, like on an ET level, through all your incarnations, because we incarnate into every star system, because that's the way this universe operates. You actually live every experience there is to live, and that's how you learn, by walking the path and cultivating the wisdom. And that's life, basically, in a nutshell. And so what they do is they pick out particular aspects that are pertinent, and they don't have access to all of them, but the ones they do have access to, and they get particular about picking out your particular skill sets. And let's say you've been a member of an empire, maybe they might have hatred towards you, or they know somebody else that does, and they tee up an abduction where they can do whatever with you and then wipe your memory and put you back. And those sorts of things do happen, unfortunately. I've experienced a couple of those. And then there's, they understand your skills, your assets, what you're capable of. And then they go through the process of apprehending you and subjugating you and wanting to use you as an asset.
Well said. We have another question about the Freemasons. I know that you touched upon that earlier. I have to say that I have a couple of friends who are Freemasons, and I've hung out with them, and they're great people. I just was not impressed with the people that I met in their circles. There was one time when I was in a room with 5 33-degree Masons, and they were basically grilling me about who I am and where I come from and, this and that. And I was not impressed with, I was like, really? You guys are the 33rd degrees? The big spooky 33rd degrees in the background. I was laughing about the situation after the fact. So it brought a whole new perspective to Freemasonry and the conspiracy behind it. Now, you could argue and just say, well, that's just one sect of Freemasonry that happens to be here in the area. Other parts of the world, it could operate on a much, much different scale. But what I determined is, even at the level of 33rd degree, it's even difficult for them to organize a bake sale, much less take over the world. But again, it could just be this one particular group of Freemasons. Your thoughts on Freemasonry?
Well, the original idea of Freemasonry was all about understanding how to be one with the earth and working with the mineral realm. That's the original idea, and that's why you can look at that gentleman who moved that coral castle in one night, built it very quickly, and then relocated it in one night. And everyone's like scratching their heads, how'd they do it? And I remember how we built the pyramids. I actually remember what the Great Pyramid was used for. I remember laying in the sarcophagus when I was a pharaoh. Don't ask me which one. I'm not going to tell you, because that's not important. So the way the pyramids were built was going to the mineral realm and asking the mineral realm, in natural relationship with it, who is it that is in their soul journey, their destiny, to actually have this co-creative process with us. And you quickly get, it's not using divinity rods or anything. It's just natural relationship, and you know exactly where to go to get it, because this process happens very quickly. And so you go to a place, you don't cut the rocks out, you're in communication with the rock, and the rock actually divides itself into exactly how it needs to express itself. It will just separate, it will float out. What happens is, through your natural relationship with the mineral realm, what happens is the mineral itself, the being who is that rock, because you're in relationship with it, will alter the rate of the spin of the atoms, which then changes the molecular vibration, and the vibration of the molecules then determine the density of the matter. So, it's just a connection. The rock will levitate, and then it's like, come with me. It's like taking a dog for a walk, and the rocks will just float. And that's without technology. This is the most advanced way of actually working with nature, and if you have to work with nature to build something, right? But that's why I said earlier, the Aborigines are the most advanced civilization on the planet, because they never needed to build any structures, right? Whereas other indigenous cultures needed to build structures. So the Aborigines are so advanced that they lived in dream time. There was no need for structures at all whatsoever. They were totally in tune with nature. They never got bothered by hot or cold or anything. They were just totally in sync with it. So that's why I made that comment earlier. Whereas a lot of others, they needed to build structures. And technology, that type of technology was used. So the pyramids were built very quickly over a short period of time, and all the rocks were just put in place so perfectly. And when the rocks were put into place, there was just that little flex that happened. And that's why the seal between the stones is so good. And they stand the test of time. And the crumbly pyramids, they're the much younger ones. Even though archaeologists will tell you they're older, the truth is they're much younger, and that's why the hieroglyphs are in those crumbly younger pyramids that are falling apart. And they were the ones built with slaves, and they're the ones that showed how they were built. And in the main pyramids, there's no hieroglyphs, there's nothing, because they are so freaking ancient, even beyond 12,000 years old, that they have stood the test of time because they're built properly. And they're in synergy. The stone is in synergy with earth. The understanding of anchoring the energy of Orion on that part of the planet, Mother Earth, that's part of her thing. Just like Angkor Wat, that's Alpha Draconis on Earth. If you didn't know that, interesting about all the pineal gland stuff going on there. Just thought I'd throw that one in. And then Orion, the Giza Plateau, is all about Orion and the relationship to Sirius and the Pleiades. So there's a lot going on in these places. And just to throw in about the sarcophagus, my memory of it was I was able to lay in the sarcophagus. I drew in the elements, the 4 elements. I was the 5th element in the sarcophagus. And each corner of the pyramids are 4 elements. So it's a little bit different to the medicine wheel. This is more technological construct method of approach. And you pull in the 4 elements of the construct. You can deconstruct your physiology and project yourself out through the top of the pyramid at particular alignments, and project yourself out into the stars, or out through the shafts when they lined up with certain stars. But that whole King's Chamber, that room, is a resonant chamber, and you can do lots of things. You can even pull in the 4 elements, be one with the earth, and you can project a field of protection around the earth to stop craft beaming the earth and trying to blow it up, or firing weapons at the earth, which got used. And you can actually use the pyramid to fire energy out of it and take out planetary sized craft. So there you go. I'm going to have to say, Joseph Farrell, you're right about it, but on one particular thing, and can be used as a weapon system. So he's absolutely right when it comes to that. He just doesn't know the whole story of it, but he's definitely right.
Well said.
Very well said.
Yeah, we have a clip of us here in the Great Pyramid doing the resonance thing, but I can't find it off the top. But you're right. It's all built on resonance. When we were in there doing the it was vibrating, and what we were noticing was that the would go up to the top of the room, allow for time for breath while still resonating, and you could build up that resonance even more and more and more and more. And it's funny you say the 5th element, because when we were in the sarcophagus, the way that I described it was like a fuse, like we became the fuse that linked up the circuit there, and the amount of energy that was passing through me was incredible. It wasn't fun. Let me just put it like that. It was completely different than what I expected. It hurt. It hurt. I didn't expect pain. I expected bliss. The whole and all of that. It turned out to be the opposite of that. So yeah,
it's just that you forgot how to actually do it properly. If I was to go there now, the way I am now, I don't remember. I don't know if I was to go there where I would have access to the memory, but I can tell you I wouldn't remember now how to do it. It's a big deal. It's
not for a normal body to do. I mean, it's very, very tense. It's intense on the body, very intense on the body. So, anyways,
we have lots of other questions.
Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Gio.
To go over the origination of the word God. Where do you think it came from?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's a derivative from, the word God was handed to us by King James, just, the latest version of it, the G-O-D, yeah, as G-O-D, those 3 letters. Okay, that came to us from King James and the priestly caste that were running his geopolitical model, basically, and they were the theocratic model. So that's the latest expression of that. And then there was, prior to that, it's a derivative from Aramaic. Oh, wow, I'm just watching that video now.
I think this might be the one that we're doing the ums on. Let me turn up the volume.
So that's my take on that answer. Other people have a better understanding of the etymology of that word. But really, when you look at those letters G-O-D, it's a key. It's 3 letters in the sequence, which creates a pattern. And that is a key that opens up a portal. And every time you use that word, every time someone OMGs, they open up a portal and they're accrediting their creative process or the circumstances of creation in that moment to that entity. And when I integrated with my soul, I got to see all the energy pouring off the earth and going towards this entity. Multiple entities or minor deific interfaces, but this one main entity in an androgynous state beyond the mother god, father god expression of all religions. It was incredible. And all the different textures and colors coming off the earth were all the different religious constructs and all the different types of worship and prayer and devotion. And it was just pouring off the earth and going to this entity is just sucking it all up and being empowered from it. And so, yeah, I'm really careful. I don't use that word and getting that word out of your actual psyche. So you are moved from actually being programmed by that word. It's amazing when you become aware how much people use it. Then you hear it everywhere. Everyone, like, I'm down the street. Oh my God. You got kids saying it. And then you got OMGs happening everywhere in movies, it's just everywhere. And, you realize that, every time it's ka-ching, ka-ching, every time it's
cashing in.
Packet of energy being deposited in that direction towards that entity. And people will say, oh, but it's the intention that counts. No, the intention can have a bit of an influence, but if you've got a key that opens a particular door, that key opens that door. And it doesn't matter what your intention is, that key opens that door.
Right.
So just don't use those words. Just don't use that word. Like, seriously, you make that decision to go, I've come across information. I'm not saying everybody has to do this, just whoever of you listening to this make this choice, right? If you make that choice to really become aware of that word, to not actually use it in your vocabulary, but embracing the truth that we're inside an intelligent universal being and having a beautiful relationship with that being, because we are, right? And to know that we exist equally beyond with that being. And then there's this other thing called God, who's one of the gods and the most powerful god of gods, who's really loving the devotion, the worship, the adulation, the adoration, and all this stuff that goes along with all these religious constructs. So if you make that choice, then you're going to become very much aware. And then what happens is a shift in your awareness takes place. And then you realize the extent of mind control on this planet. Your awareness of mind control, just through this one singular process via this word, will totally change your perception of mind control in this world.
I think a lot of it goes back to the power of spelling. That's why magic involves words, because words carry the power. And if you know the right words to this simulation or this, simulated universe we're all in, those words carry meaning. No matter if you're realizing it or not, that it doesn't matter. It's like you said, the key in the lock. You can't open any other door with that key. And so I think once we realize the power of words, and once we realize which words carry which kinds of power, then we can perform magic. But if you're ignorant to that, then, it can be used on you instead of you using it to your own advantage.
Yeah, well, we did go to school to learn how to spell, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I won all the spelling bees whenever I was growing up. I think Chris calls me like the
grammar Nazi.
Well, no, you're like the power of perfect spelling.
That's her superpower.
That's my superpower. Yeah.
Perfect spelling.
We have another question here. Let's see. What part of Cory Goode's story was based in reality and not programming? Since you said there's some truth to what Cory brought forward.
Yeah, I think there's more than some. And yeah, I totally disagreed with him on the whole blue avian thing. Because I just kept trying to feel, and I could be wrong and he could be right. I'm just always open to this possibility, but I do have the right to express my opinion on the matter. And really, I feel that a lot of the information he's brought forth in regards to the secret space program, on regards to a lot of the missions that he's been on, the 20 and back. I've met lots of other people who have had the same experiences. I had a really interesting interaction with Randy Kramer, because when I started sharing with Randy at Albuquerque about my experience on Mars, and I went through the whole calibration process of how people, when they go to Mars and how they get calibrated and all this calibration process in detail, I noticed the impact it had on him. He actually phased out for a moment as well. And so I could see that the memory screen they put on Randy was being impacted in that moment when I was speaking to him. So I know for sure Randy's been, part of the Mars program, because it was really palpable. And Randy's, he's been part of that. So what's happening is all these people are coming out now, and there's been a lot who have talked about these missions to do with Mars. And you also got to understand, a lot of people look at Mars and they just see Mars from the way we see it here. But again, Mars is a multidimensional reality. Okay, so when I was on Mars, it was I was breathing the atmosphere there. Now I don't know if it's like that in this dimension, but it was very red, rocky, and I can tell you, the water that I entered on Mars, it was only a little reservoir of water. And I've talked about my trip there and my experience there. I don't know if I need to go through the whole thing again, but I think I've talked about it in one of your previous programs.
Yes.
I immersed myself in that water, and the next day my bed sheets absolutely reeked. The smell, the stench from that water. It was really bad. I had to wash my sheets and took a couple of washes to get the smell out of that water, because of the type of fish that were in it. Yeah. And so I was physically there, and then I was physically back. Yeah. And I've talked about how the jump room that I experienced was actually going into, think of the Stargate that you see on Stargate, right? Similar to that, but horizontal. And I'm on the platform and people would jump. That's what they call it, a jump, that style of jump room, that style of technology. Now, other people experienced other technologies. Other people would just fall into it. But the process we had to go through was relinquishing your will to live to the technology that you were about to immerse yourself in. That was so fucking hard to do. Pardon my languaging.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
We all do it.
But that was, for me, so challenging because I have a strong will. Okay. And that determination, I got that from my father, the tenacity and all that, one of his fabulous qualities and traits. And so for me to let go of the will to live was really hard. I had to go into full trust and give it over to that technology, because if you enter into it with fear, it could complicate the way you are restructured on the other end. So you have to be in peace and in love and in trust of the technology as you fall into it. Yeah?
Wow. That reminds me of ayahuasca.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Mars situation, Andy Bashago is somebody that talks about that a lot, and he's actually starting a show on TFR. We're still ironing out the final things, but he'll be broadcasting, I think, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific on Sundays. Good friend of ours. The question I've posed to him, and I want to pose this to you as well, is number one, I don't feel that what NASA's showing us about Mars is accurate. I remember back in 2000, they showed this picture of Mars, the latest image, rover images, and on that picture were blue skies and green and brown terrain. Nobody said anything about it until 3 days later when they asked them, why is all this blue and why is all this brown and all of this? And they said, well, we've been tinting the photos artificially red up until this point. We just didn't tint these photos. And I thought to myself, well, that's odd. And then there's some evidence to show, or some speculation, I don't want to say it's evidence, but speculation to show that a lot of the pictures that we're seeing are actually from Devon Island rather than Mars. And then you find, different anomalies in the photographs as well, which people will point to and say, well, that's proof of life on Mars. But I would ask the question, are these photos even of Mars that we're looking at? So one of the questions that I posed to Andy is, could Mars actually be another simulation, or in the same type of construct that we're in now, rather than a planet that is 3 months in a spacecraft? Rather, it's somewhere that's a lot closer to us, maybe on the other side of the known map, or perhaps something that's interdimensional. And this technology is actually taking you, rather than to that planet that's out there 3 months away, it's taking you to another space, another dimension, or the way that I like to put it, another simulation. Your thoughts on that possibility?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the way I experienced it was that it is how we see it. We can see it with our eyes. You can actually look at it through a telescope and you can see it. And the technology that I used to go there is very much instantaneous, happens very quickly. And that technology exists. It doesn't take 3 months to get there. It's not even 30 seconds. It's
instantaneous. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just this weird transition. You just see, tingles and a little bit of nausea on the other end, and not much else than that. All happens very fast. And so, what I do experience is a real planet, and this is me. And I could be wrong, but I'm experiencing a real planet. I'm in conscious relationship with the sun, because I'm incarnate into a solar being, the body of the solar being. So I understand its body and its ecosystem. And for me, the planet Mars is real. And it's a very big part of all of us being a broken warrior, and the archetype that all us men are actually, to understand the ecosystem and the theme of the solar system in this age, in this era, this epoch, and the way it's constructed, and the planetary beings expressing themselves the way they are to create the ecosystem. So we could come in here and have this amazing experience and live the themes that we need to live. So, but I do understand that Mars is a multidimensional reality, as are all planetary realities, and therefore there are things going on Mars in other dimensions. What I experienced when I was there was a reservoir of water. I had a chaperone with me, and he started entering. He was actually unclothing first. He was taking his clothes off. I entered the water first. And then all of a sudden, he just instantly appeared next to me, grabbed me by the arm, and bilocated me instantly out of the water. And I said, "What's the matter? I can swim." I used to be a competition swimmer. I can swim. And he said, no, you don't understand what's in the water. They will eat you in an instant. And there were these, and I can tell you what they look like. Think of a garf fish, but think of them 3 meters in length. And where I got to see them when I swam with him under the water. And because he morphed into like a catfish type of being, and their eyes were in the hinge of the jaw. They got these long, like a garfish snout, and their eyes were in the circular part where the jaw hinged. It was really a strange creature. I haven't seen anything like that. and the water smelled very strongly. And we went underneath the cabin and up on the stairs, and I was summoned there by what's known as the matriarch of Mars. And she came out in human form when she greeted me, and then I blanked out. And the next thing I remember, I'm in my bed, and I don't know how long I was there for, but I have the knowledge of going and seeing these systems of establishment of, but similar to that, but a lot longer and skinnier, and the snout's longer and longer, sharp teeth.
Wow.
And the eye was in the hinge. Like it was like where the jaw hinges, there was this circular thing, and the eye was in that circle, in the hinge of the jawbone. And they weren't mechanical, they were native to the planet, because Mars was very much a water world. And the systems of calibrating people to the Mars reality and to the Mars environment is they have these areas where they inject people with particular types of nanites, and they calibrate the person in this area, which is still 90% the vibration of Earth and 10% the vibration of Mars. And they stay there for a period of about a month. They work, and it's a big area. They work and do stuff, and then they go to another section where it's like 20% Mars, 80% Earth, and then they move again, and then they move again, and until it goes, switches 50-50, then goes the other way. And it takes a period of a few months, almost a year, for the people to go through this whole process. But once they're calibrated to Mars, that's it, because you need to understand our bodies are made for this reality. And even when I came back from my journey, my short journey to there, my body ached for days because I was experiencing the vibration of Mars. And then coming back into this reality, it was very painful because my atoms spun at a different rate. My molecules vibrated at a different rate. And it's the same with going into ET craft. When you go into their reality, you go into their craft, you're in their reality. And coming back from many abductions, if the ETs weren't very high tech and able to create these beautiful and wonderful in-between places where you can meet them, then what they're doing is they're just pulling you into their reality, and it becomes very painful because your molecules are vibrating according to that reality that you get taken into. So these are all little tidbits that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but there are people out there who I feel are really quite genuine about their experiences.
That's very interesting because the way you answered the question was very similar to the way Andy answered it as well. Mm-hmm. So, he was pretty convinced that it's an actual planetary system rather than another simulation or anything like that. My mind always tries to go to the most, the simplest explanation.
Most reasonable.
We hear about these races coming in from millions of light years away. I think it's more likely, and again, this is just my own speculation, that they're coming from somewhere closer, maybe even interdimensionally. They could exist right here in the same space that we're in. They're just in a different frequency. Mm-hmm. And it would make more sense how they're jumping from there to here instead of millions and millions and millions of light years of travel. But then again, their technology could be so advanced that they're able to, so it takes it into so many different lines of thought.
Well, I'd like to add to that and say, we are in a universal fractal. So the interest here on Earth is the peak interest in the universe because we are at the tip of the evolutionary process, universally speaking. And the overwhelming majority of life out there in the natural organic order of life hold us in the highest of regard because we are so brave entering this fractal process, entering into the process of alchemy and integration, compression and integration. And, you get fed this bullshit story that we're at the bottom of the universe and we're in this disgustingly dense reality because we're a bunch of lowly sinners. And, when you look at that, the political bullshit that is being, and I'm talking cosmopolitical bullshit that is being spread, the narrative, the memes, the psychological warfare that is going on the human race to make us out to be the worst and we're hopeless and we're lonely sinners and we squabble and fight amongst ourselves. We are under the greatest imposition from every perceivable angle of our existence.
Agreed.
Right?
Yep.
And the natural order of life out there is just going, wow, have a look at these beings. They're in there doing that. Most of them are like, I ain't going in there.
I'm not going there.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, only the bravest of the brave come to this world to do what we're doing. And those who succumb to the propaganda, to the narrative, the reason you are succumbing to the narrative of thinking less of yourself and of not remembering who and what you truly are is because they are preying on your wounds.
Yep.
Well said. That's where they want to keep us.
Narrative put out there is designed to hit you right on your wound points, right where it hurts the most.
Yep.
Very
They pour
well said.
salt in there. Yep.
Any more questions, Mrs. G?
Yes. What do you think of Dolores Cannon's work, the late Dolores Cannon?
Yeah, got to do an event with her in Adelaide. It was good. It was good to see her. And, sure, Dolores was still stuck in the God matrix. Most people are. It's really hard to find people. If you look across, the whole awake and aware scene, they're apparently awake and aware scene, and just
apparently
everybody.
Well,
I've got to turn up to these conferences. I've got to rub shoulders with all these people, and I don't want to be derogatory towards them at all.
Right.
I mean, these are really good people. They just don't see past that matrix system yet. That's all. That's all it is. And a lot of people are seeing past it. And it's not that I'm so superior to them. It's not that at all.
Right.
It's just, some people are walking further down the path. And the way I explain it to people is, and this is still, I'm staying with Dolores's energy, is that we're walking down a path. And has anyone ever gone hiking in life? And you go with a group of people, even if it's 2 people or 3 people, you don't walk abreast all at the same time. Let's get someone that meanders forward, someone in the middle, a group at the back, and the person that's in front. And if they go further in front, then they can turn around and come back. Oh, wait till you see what's coming up. I saw this, this, and this. And it's, wait till you see what's coming up around the corner. So just think of a group of us that are just meandering down the path ahead of the others. That's all it is. No superiority complex, nothing like that going on. We're just walking ahead. And for whatever reason, I think it has to do with obligation and responsibility for us to get into detail. So, Dolores still in the God matrix, but her work and a lot of the stuff that she pulled out, you see, a lot of the way she set up the rooms and the way she worked with patients, unfortunately, was through that angelic energy, which is all God matrix, right? So working with those beings and information being fed and influenced via those constructs, well, what kind of information are you going to get? Most of it's going to come from the God matrix and Empire, basically the spiritual arm of Empire. So, but still, she got a lot of really good information. And this split that's going on, you can see the divide that's happening between a natural and organic creative new world that we want to create, and this dystopian technological augmented reality that is emerging here at the same time. It's pretty obvious to see. And when I was with that Mayan shaman in Guatemala, Rosario, her name is, well, she told me about the true meaning of the prophecy of the Mayan calendar was at December 21, 2012, there was going to be this split in consciousness that was going to occur. And we all passionately wanted it to happen in a day. And of course, there were those of us who couldn't understand time properly and all this energy coming down from the future. And we didn't quite get it right. But the split in consciousness is that is definitely occurring.
I agree with you. There was definitely a point of maybe a veil being dropped. I don't know how to describe it, but something happened, and the split in consciousness has become more and more apparent, which is again why I have observed the phenomenon of NPCs, non-player consciousness, within this matrix, which is actually an ancient idea going back to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, children of men, children of light. Blavatsky talked about those with the divine spark, those without. It's something that people have recognized, but now we're putting kind of into technological terms, which was kind of healing for me, to know that my job isn't to wake everybody up.
Right.
My job is only to wake myself up and to change myself. But we're never going to change the world on a whole. We can only change ourselves. We'll watch the world change as we're changing ourselves, but we're only responsible for that one person. And then realizing that some people just simply are not capable of waking up because they're not the same type of consciousness that we are, also made things a whole lot easier, because then you're not yelling at walls anymore. You're not yelling at brick walls going, wake up, wake up, wake up. It's a brick wall. It can't wake up.
Right.
It's not going to. Focus on yourself, then move on to somebody who is receptive to what you're saying. It made things so much easiar, those revelations.
Totally. Yeah, I'm like that with clients too. I've set up my website now where, if people are who are not willing to actually look at themselves, I've got no time for those people anymore, because it's a waste of their time. And resources. Mm-hmm. It's a waste of my time and resources, and we just need to find those harmonious balance points. And you want a clientele, you want a listener base that's actually interested, not trolls that come in, or people that get totally offended by their belief systems, and all they want to do is sit there and just defend their belief systems and castigate and persecute everybody else. So we want people who are actually willing to listen and take into consideration what gets shared. And we all need to do that's what being human is all about. So I'm always listening. I'm always saying, I could be wrong about stuff, and I'm willing to take into consideration anything anyone has to show me that's going to show me something different. The problem is, I integrated with my soul in 2003, and it might take a bit of time before someone shows me anything different from what I witnessed. Maybe the universe is going to show me something different. But what I witnessed, and it's hard, it puts me in a very difficult position, because now I'm going to disregard that whole experience. And it wasn't a dream, right? I was actually integrated with my soul, and the way it happened too, my galactic family picked me up and took me away from this reality, so I can actually come out of my body fully, to the point where it's like a death process. And I just went, and I went through all the dimensions. I just saw everything just squash into this little vortex of light. The whole grand cosmic arena, the whole multiverse became this little vortex of spinning light like that. And I popped out of that, and then I'm there, total unity with the universal being. And I was just like, wow. And then accessing the whole omniverse, into the infinite nature of life. And I was just awareness. I wasn't in the body, of course. I was just this pure awareness. And it was... I came back, and the next day I was scrubbing the toilet going, what the fuck? And that's where Jupiter ascending. Someone was listening to me reporting that, because I've talked about this in many interviews. And I still feel, and many people feel, that Jupiter ascending was a serious plagiarism of my journey and my work.
I believe that as well.
I couldn't watch it. The acting was so bad. Yeah, and the script was horrible.
Well, it was a Cinderella. They were trying to take George's work and then put like a weird pop culture Cinderella story spin on it, and it's nauseating to watch. It really is, because they took something that could have been great. If they had worked with you to make a film, I would love
to have worked with them.
Exactly.
If they wanted to. I don't know why they did. They did it with the Matrix trilogy to that other lady as well. I forgot her name.
Yeah.
And they did it with Jupiter ascending with my work too.
That's what they do. They take something beautiful, and then they inject that pop culture garbage into it and force it to work within those parameters. And if you're working within those parameters, it's just going to be cheap. It's just going to be it's not going to be spiritually active in people's minds at all. And it was just, if they had worked with you to create a movie that was based on those same principles, but with the respect that those principles deserve, it would have been a fantastic film.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. They have to control the narrative, right?
Right.
We see on Netflix, there's a lot of really, really, really fascinating Netflix series that have to do with a lot of the stuff that we talk about. A lot of the concepts that we're experiencing are now in films, but they need to be able to control the ultimate narrative. And I think what they're doing is they're playing to the natural awakeness of consciousness and hitting certain points that resonate. But see, it's by hitting those points that resonate that then you can inject the poison into the whole idea and concept of everything. So you give somebody 10 really great points, and then the 11th point is the poison, which is the point that you're trying to get through into that consciousness. But in order to open up that consciousness, you've got to have the 10 accurate points that are hitting the consciousness. So I see that I see that happening in Hollywood, which is why we're not consulted on anything, because they want to take what we have and then steer it in their direction.
Right.
That's my analysis.
I would love to work with someone, who's a filmmaker and that, because I remember when Empire took over our solar system. I remember the detail of that, and I've explained some of my experiences with that memory to other people, and they have the memories of the same event from different, perspectives, but the same event, different people, all having the same memory of the same event from different perspectives. Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Wow.
It is.
A couple more questions,
Yeah,
and
I think
then
we
we'll
have
wrap it up here in a few minutes.
Just enough time for a few more questions. The first one being, I put two of the questions from the listeners into one. Rex Flexall and I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter. Just
and
get
Andrew
George.
Get
to the question if you
can you ask him where he feels we are headed in the current or near future? Are worlds going to split? Will timelines converge? Will we be required to come back here, or can we finally leave? And also, are we trapped in this matrix of reincarnation?
Yeah. If you reintegrate with your heart soul essence, truly, and you really step into the truth that we are sovereign, infinite creator beings. That's the true essence of who we are at the core, at the heart. Sovereign, infinite creator beings. You really need to remember what the word infinite actually means. So I get it infinite, but looking at it from infinite as it is pronounced, we are in the finite, and at the same time we are completely infinite. And no beginning or end. We've never been created. We always have been, always will be. And we've chosen to enter this universe. And just that we're in a part of this journey through this universe, this aspect of us. And we're just emerging from the veil of amnesia. That's all. Mm-hmm. We're awakening. So reconnecting and, the connection is already there. Relaxing into who you already are is the key. Stop thinking you must achieve something that isn't. Relax into what is. And you already are a sovereign, infinite creator being. You are a vast, multidimensional being. You occupy every single reality in this universe. You're in every dimension. And to think that you have to go from here and journey to another dimension, I call that the ascension deception. That is a total bullshit. And that is created by Empire to get you to go from this really undesirable place that's created to some heavenly type of realm, which is going to seem so beautiful compared to this one. But really, it's just going to be another prison. So by us really relaxing and remembering who we truly are from the core, we are going to awaken. We're going to awaken our natural relationship we have with our mother planet, with the sun, with the galaxy, with the universal being, and with our infinite nature beyond. And you'll just begin to see it all. I'm in the awakening process. I'm living my personal apocalypse. And that's enabled me to be able to share my experiences with you guys. There's many people who are awakening. Obviously, Chris and Cherie are, and all of you who's listening to this, you are awakening. And this is part of our awakening process. And I'm going to say, be gentle on yourselves. And there are times when you've got to take action, but don't force the situation.
Right.
There's a difference, right? And most people are feeling like they're not good enough. I've got to hurry up. There's this pressure, this underlying subconscious pressure. I've got to do it. I've got to do it. I've got to hurry. And what that is, that's a consciousness virus in your subconscious realm, which is implanted into the collective manufactured general consensus reality of the human race. And like I said, I mapped all this out in great detail in that presentation on mind control I did in Murwillumbah, which will be out soon. I'm really editing that at the moment. And we're going to get this chance to implement. So if you look at the decade we just came out of, and it was the teens decade, right? So if we look at that, and I'm looking at the theme, and it has emerged that we did a lot of growing up.
Yeah,
got
we
through
did.
puberty. We're starting to wake up. We're becoming more spiritually mature as we're going along.
We're
And now
figuring
hitting
out what gender we are.
Chris,
Sorry, I had to
That's
throw that in
awful.
there because it's been ridiculous.
he's awful. No, I
Go ahead.
agree. I agree with you,
Oh.
George.
Oh, it's been crazy,
we've
right?
grown
so
up.
that's been the teens.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So we're figuring all that out.
Mhm.
Yeah. And now in the 20s, we have this wonderful opportunity to start really implementing and emerging as the mature adults. So we're starting to really emerge. And so everything that we've learned and we've figured out in the last, because everybody's gone through a re-evaluation and therefore a restructuring, right? And the pressure up until this last solstice, wow, it was intense. And it was like I was not allowed to take forward after this solstice all the programs that were no longer good for me moving forward, and all the things in my life that I'd created that we couldn't. And everybody that I spoke to felt the same way. We just couldn't take into this new cycle moving forward, what we would call the calendrical decade, but then after this solstice and the rhythm of that moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now the 20s is where we actually get to implement everything. And the 20s is when you're in your 20s, you're completely reevaluating next level from the teens and restructuring. So now the real restructuring takes place, because in your 20s, usually you move out of home, usually you get a job. So your whole life just restructures. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people enter relationships. So the 20s moving forward is all about human society restructuring. So reevaluation's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a bit more reevaluation, but this is where the restructuring of human society is going to take place in this next decade.
Yep.
New financial systems, religious constructs, whatever.
Yes,
Disclosure.
Definitely. Yeah, and
That's-
astrology in general for the world, that echoes exactly what you just said. That the 20s are going to be about restructuring based on what we learned in the teens, and it's like that for everybody. Literally everybody living on this planet right now. Last question. Will you still be a speaker in Albuquerque in May, and will you conduct a course while you're in the States?
Yeah, I won't have time this time around. We do have a gathering that's going to happen in just outside of Washington on the 14th of March, which is a Saturday. And the address and everything is going to be put up in my events page of the membership. If you can just get all the details there of all the events. I won't have time. I will, however, make myself available for like a day either side of the conference if people want to catch up. I'm happy to do that. And the conference in Albuquerque is going to be the first week of April. The conference in Seattle, I'm going there a bit early both times, is going to be on the 21st and 22nd of March. So it's going to be on the equinox. So Architects of the New Paradigm in Bellevue outside of Seattle, 21st, 22nd of March. Albuquerque, Human Origins, is first week of April. So that's the dates that we're looking at. And, if anybody wants to come along and hang out or attend the conference, it'd be great.
Excellent.
We have a question real quick from somebody that just brought this up. I've never heard of this before. Project Ibis. Have you heard about that? I just Googled it real quick. It seems to be a super soldier project. Interesting.
That is not flagging anything inside of me, so it's probably something I wasn't a part of. Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to do some research on it and get back to everybody about that.
Yes.
So,
anything else, or are those all the questions?
I think those are all the
Awesome.
pertinent questions.
George, you are definitely a brother from a long time ago, an infinite brother. I greatly appreciate you.
I love you guys.
I do too.
Really.
Love you, man.
I feel the same way.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I love about us, even though we have a difference of opinion about certain things. It doesn't matter. I mean, the heart connection is definitely there. It's real. It's strong. And I'm working through my stuff. You guys are working through yours. And the love, honor, and respect will never go away.
Well, I mean,
For you
how
either.
boring would it be if we all thought the same way?
Right.
There'd be no
We'd be
advancement
robots.
because everybody's thinking the same way.
I know. We're not cookie cutter robots.
Yeah.
Seriously, come on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and if I can just say, I know you guys, it's been a marathon. And you know, I'm a bit of a seasoned campaigner when I do my online courses. Like on yesterday, it was 5.25 hours that we were online for in my teaching online. Yeah, it was the original idea was like 3 hours. So, you know, I've got my online courses. If people want to come along, just do my quick plug if I could, to weareinfinite.love. That's the membership community. The archive has grown so big now, like massive hours and hundreds of hours of viewing and listening and all sorts of stuff. I'm always pouring content in. And also, yeah, that's it. Who's that guy? And the one thing I want to say to everybody is it's a process of remembering. You are being convinced that you must achieve something that you are not. And I'm here to remind you that all you need to do is relax into who you actually are. And that being human, this whole idea that you must eradicate human emotion is a lie. And the truth of the matter is, and I really mean this, and I know people use this languaging, and I'm saying this for real, that human emotion is actually the key to alchemy, to empowerment, to growth, and to the becoming of who we are emerging as a race. We are universal embryos in the planetary womb of the universal mother. And as we emerge, this new version of us is emerging out of us, never seen before, a new version of you, which is a unified version of everything you've seen, done, and been in this universe. That's what this fractal reality is about. You are living the most powerful crucible in the existence of this universe. It is amazing to be here. Embrace your human emotion, okay, and understand how to work with it, understand the power that you actually have as a humane being. And when we do that, you quickly realize that peace is an automatic byproduct of just us naturally being ourselves. So we don't even have to work at peace. All we have to be is naturally who inherently we are, which is humane beings.
Well said. If I can ask one more question. So I feel like I've come to a point, and maybe this is just part of the journey because there's more that lays ahead, but I've come to a point where there's kind of a protective barrier around myself. And it's not necessarily a protective barrier in the sense that it's an external thing, but this series of gnosis and understanding that I've unlocked within myself has kind of placed me outside of the frequency of the influence of the matrix and all around. While at the same time, as I mentioned before, breaking down all of those illusions has also put me in a state of feeling like, well, what's left to do? I mean, what do we do while we're here? You know, we might as well have fun. We might as well enjoy what we're doing here. Is there a point we reach that we realize, okay, well, we've unlocked it all. There's really nowhere else to go at this point except for out of here. Your thoughts on that idea? Or is this just an ego trap that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, so what I've discovered, and nobody has to go where I'm going, okay? Just want to make that clear. So where am I headed? And that'll explain how I see it. So my intentions reside in my journey, and I'm unfolding in this symbiotic journey with Mother Earth. I feel a strong sense of responsibility and obligation here. I'm one of the beings who helped build this realities, the galaxy, the solar system, and the planet from the very beginning. I was in with this whole fractal pathway and what it was designed to do, and the outcomes it was designed to achieve. And I'm going to talk about all that in Albuquerque. That's the Albuquerque one. I'm going to get right into how we built the galaxy and all that stuff. And then there's, as Mother Earth evolves, and inside the Earth is a female version of the sun. So we actually incarnate on Mother Sun, S-U-N, right? So, and the crust is the eggshell. Eventually, I don't know when this is going to happen, but eventually, could be a million years from now. I don't freaking know. To be honest, it could be this lifetime. That eggshell has to crack and a being of light will emerge and be birthed. So that is the big end story of the star law and the nature of this reality. Now, what I'm here to do in this lifetime is to live my fundamental purpose, and I don't want to actually get out of this reality. I will leave when my time comes, but I still get the feeling that this reality is going to go through a bit of a change, a bit of a process where we become more of who we originally were intended to be. And instead of other beings coming here and doing it for us, we are emerging as these natural creator beings, and we are earning the natural authority and the right, because we are in unity with our mother planet, to actually create and co-create the reality that we wish to live in moving forward.
I love it.
Beautifully said.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So on that note, we'll wrap it up. I do want to play a video for the audience after we let you go, George, because it's something that we were kind of talking about. It kind of gives you a better understanding of who this Yahweh kind of character is. If you want to hang out and comment on it after the fact, you're welcome to. But again, I don't want to keep you. So if you do take off, we love you. If you're still here after the video's played, then maybe we can talk about
How long's the video?
It's only like 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a fair whack.
Okay.
I'm feeling pretty tired now. I did want to talk to you off air if we could.
Yeah.
And I did want to catch up in that regard. And also, I just want to say a really big thank you, because there's very few people that I speak to in the world that are actually willing to be so raw, honest, and authentic like you.
Oh, thank you.
And Cherie. I mean, I just no, and I'm not just kissing butt. You know, I'm not
I know
stroking the ego here. I'm actually telling it how it is, and people that know me know I'm just so raw and direct.
Yep.
And we need more people like you guys doing what you're doing, because it's you have shared openly, and as I have, we've done the same thing. We have shared our journeys openly with the people. Mm-hmm. And they've seen the difficult circumstances we've been in. They've seen our shortcomings. They've seen when we got caught up in belief systems, and I feel that we are leading by example to show them that it's okay, because they see their shortcomings and our shortcomings. They see where we have fallen over, or we have mm-hmm. and we get back up again, and they do the same. And that's the feedback that I get from a lot of people. They say, George, we just love how you're just a normal guy. You're just a real guy, and you have the same issues that I have in life.
Yeah.
And we do. We have the same issues that everyone else has. So I don't get around in robes, and I don't pretend, and I'm not pretentious, and I don't wear a mask, and neither does Chris and Cherie. And that's why it works. Every time I come on here, it just works. And it's fun.
Well, if I can quote you, and it's something that I've been using a whole lot since I heard you say it, thank you for the acknowledgement.
Oh.
And likewise,
when I heard you say that, I was like,
you.
that's a beautiful answer. That's the most perfect answer that I've heard. And I've whenever somebody compliments me, I always say thank you for the acknowledgement. And I got that from you. Yeah. So thank you for the acknowledgement.
Well, and likewise, we feel the exact same way about you. You're one of our favorite guests to have on, because you're so real and you just tell it like it is. And you're not afraid to show that vulnerability. And we have a lot we can learn from you. I think everyone has a lot that they can learn from you. So
definitely. So if it's okay, we'll give you a call in about half an hour, so we can finish up the show, and then we can catch up off air. So cool.
Sounds good.
Love you, brother. Thank you so much.
We love you.
All right, we'll talk soon.
I get that one.
Yes, that's the power sign from the sarcophagus. It's what is it? The Ankh and the Was holding it like that. Mm-hmm. All right, love you. Call-in show. Maybe we'll do one tomorrow night or something like that.
Yeah.
But we've been going 4.5 hours now, and
I think we're getting tired.
Yeah, a little bit. So on that note, kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. Maybe we'll do another show about the God paradox and elaborate a little bit further into that. So kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be, and we'll see you even further.
Beyond the veil.
Beyond the veil.